This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
Do you want to start preambling on what our doubleheader is going to be today?
Yeah, we're doing a doubleheader today because it is the Battle of the White Tower. And yeah, just going through the whole thing today, we're going to try and knock it all out in one go through. Because again, just like the last two chapters, it's one scene broken over two chapters because it is quite long, but I think it works really well as one episode.
Yeah, I mean, neither one is titled The Battle of the White Tower.
Right.
If you talk to anyone in the fandom and you say The Battle of the White Tower, they know you mean these two chapters.
Right.
Because
right.
how could you not, right? It's just, it's one episode. It's one episode, and it's such an action scene that I'm confident we're going to get through this in a reasonable amount of time.
Right. And like the Dress is Green sort of had a similar thing, but that was mostly, it ended in one chapter, or it sort of started at the end of one chapter, but was mostly in the chapter after that. This is actually just both chapters.
Yeah, there's a slight time jump in the middle to just allow for the fuzziness of the battle continued for a while.
It shows the beginning of the battle and the ending of the battle, but not really the middle of it.
Right, yeah, you get like a good idea of what everyone does going into the battle, and then you catch up with them at the end. And then you can fill in the details in the middle. They don't die, but they have a lot of harrowing escapes. That's how the middle of the battle went. Ta-da.
And we get some summary of how many died and all that kind of, totals and stuff at the end.
No, I think there's plenty to talk about.
Totally,
for sure.
Totally.
But lots of page time is spent on just like really cool visuals.
Yeah. And so there's definitely going to be some reading in here, I think.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, great action scene. This is the stuff where I think Sanderson really shines when he's writing these kinds of, you really want to be able to see it and visualize it, and cool battle scenes and cool moments for the characters and iconic visuals written down on the page.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the ebook covers, I think, right? Is that one with Egwene just sort of flung back using Vora's Sangreal to just blast rocket out of the sky. It's one of those pieces of art. This is just such an iconic moment. And yeah, Sanderson does it justice. Like, I mean, Egwene says, I want this to rival the last battle for its ferocity. And like, for a one-woman army, she definitely gave as good as she possibly could for that. Like, this is so epic, and Sanderson makes it so epic. And yeah, one episode.
Well, and I love the way he cranks down on the mechanism of circles and Angreal to bypass the fork route, right? Like, that's definitely him cranking down on the mechanics of how channeling works in a way that's very Sanderson of him.
And we do love a hard magic system moment.
Yes, definitely. Taking advantage of the hard magic system beautifully in a way that makes you go, oh, that is a really cool way that she could have like gained power in a moment, gone from nothing to very powerful in a very short period of time. Like, I think he really, really mastered that.
Yeah. It's delicious. So we should probably get into it.
Yeah, read us in. I think this is yours.
Okay. Chapter 40. The Tower Shakes. And our symbol is the Shan-Chan helmet. Swan awoke with a start. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. She scrambled off of her pallet. As she did, a dark figure moved suddenly on the other side of the tent, metal rasping against metal. Swan froze, embracing the source reflexively and summoning a globe of light. Gareth Bryn stood alert, heron-marked steel drawn and ready. He wore only his small clothes, and she had to keep herself from staring at his muscled body, which was in far better shape than that of most men half his age. "What is it?" he asked tensely. "Light," Swan said. "You sleep with your sword?" "Always." "Egwene is in danger." "What kind of danger?" "I don't know," she admitted. "We were meeting and she vanished suddenly. I think Elida may have decided to execute her, or at least pull her from her cell and do something to her." And that's basically what this entire plot arc does for this chapter, is the push-pull between them as they work their way towards doing the thing. And what drives me nuts, and we'll get to this in the second chapter, but at some point she has to admit the point is no longer saving Egwene from Elida. Or from the Shan-Chan. Because at one point, they're withdrawing. The battle's over, right?
And her goalposts change multiple times. First it's saving her from Elida, then it's saving her from Seanchan. Then it's and then the Seanchan are gone, but she has to pull her out anyway, which doesn't make any sense. Unless you're going back to your original Elida problem, but that's not why you charged in there, because your justification for going in there was the Seanchan, not Elida's. Yeah, that least favorite part of this chapter is Suan's weak-ass excuses for going in there and pulling her out. And her inconsistency, right?
Yeah. Her and Gawyn teaming up makes a lot of sense.
But I just feel like Suan's smarter than that, you know? I just feel like it's...
No, it's weird. It is weird how her goalposts change. And it's... Yeah, she just never admits that her real goal is to kidnap Egwene back because she's more worried about the rebel camp than about resolving the conflict and trusting Egwene. She's like, no, the rebel camp's going to fall apart. It's my right to decide for you how to handle that. Which, again, is why she pairs great with Gawyn for this part.
The two of them are doing exactly what Egwene has told them not to do by not trusting her, not treating her like an adult, not treating her like the Amerlin, and listening to her commands.
Yeah, and Gareth Bryn, goes along with it and enables it to keep them alive, and she forgives him for that. She's like, you made bad calls because the option was to let people you care about go on a suicide mission. I get it. You didn't come for me. You came for them because they couldn't be stopped. I like that she forgives him for it while also making the knife twist even harder for the other two.
Yeah. And so Suan's like, well, she should have, if it was something that was unexpected, she should have come back to sleep and let me know that there was no problem. Which basically means Suan's going in there and ruining her plans because Egwene couldn't be bothered to text back. Right?
Yeah,
she left me on
basically.
Red. I'm going in there after her because she left me on red. It's like it's like a mother texting her daughter, are you okay, at a party, not getting a response, and then calling the police and crashing the party.
Right? Yeah, totally. Especially once you see what's happening. I could totally see being we have to go in and protect Egwene. But if it was the Seanchan are withdrawing and we're so deep into enemy territory, we still need to find her. What if you had just stayed with her, slapped her awake, channeled at her to give her some energy, something to be like, Egwene, what do you want us to do? We're here now. Tell us what to do. Yeah, she was exhausted, but you don't think you couldn't have
wiped away the exhaustion? Yeah.
Given her a little power juice to she only needed 5 minutes to tell you what to do, and then she could have gone back to sleep. But yeah, the goalposts move in a way that feels inconsistent to Swan's overall intelligence. And I wonder, if that's bad writing or if that's Swan's own trauma clouding her judgment.
I mean, I'll go with Swan's clouding her judgment because she's always been this stubborn, I know what's best Amerlin. And we've seen her move beyond that a little bit, but I'm willing to, without Egwene to guide her, I can see her reverting back to that a little bit.
Well, I think especially with respect to Elida, right? Swan has some very specific trauma around Elida and making rapid decisions. So I wonder if that helps excuse it because she's like, well, normally I would trust you, but it's Elida. So I can't let go in the same way. Yeah, I don't know. It feels like it was necessary for plot rather than to stay true to Swan's character, and I don't like the plot developments that happen, so I just don't like it.
Yeah, Swan, I would have liked to see her not lose some of the growth that she gained following Egwene.
Yeah. But also, like you said, Egwene hasn't been around, so it could be easier for old habits to reassert themselves.
And she's had to make decisions on her own without guidance and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like the next conversation happens 3 or 4 times between several different characters, but between Bryn and Suan, where he goes, they're flying on channeling Shadow Spawn, and they go, oh, that must be Seanchan, because it's actually Rockin' and Toe-Rockin' and channelers on their backs instead of... And I feel like that happens in a bunch of different places.
Well, right, because we move from something is happening at the tower to something involving channeling and fire is happening at the tower to... oh shit, that's the Seanchan. We get those little bits of information dripping at us over time because we're far away from the tower, right? They are across the river
But it happens in the tower as well, in like both places, like in two different places.
Yeah, so it's hard for them to, figure it out quickly. But over time, they figure it out. Yeah, we know it's just, this is what noticing that the tower is under assault by the Shan-Chan from the air looks like. This is how that information propagates through the population.
I just wish more people were like, oh, Shan-Chan, yeah, that's what those flying things are, right? Like, but I guess they're so far away.
That's the thing, is the only reason that these people know is because Egwene had her foretelling dreams and made sure everyone knew this is what's going to happen. But yeah, they're hundreds of miles away from the front lines. The regular run-of-the-mill person has not accumulated this knowledge. This is only people who listened to Egwene and remembered what she was talking about who are going to put that together. Which, like, she did her best making sure people would know, but a lot of people were like, yeah, whatever. That's not going to happen or going to happen for months. Only Swan and a few other people, like, really committed those details to memory, I think.
So I have to draw parallels to 9/11 with this, right? A city far away from the front lines, thinking they were safe, being attacked by a flying creature in a raid that was designed to do something that we really weren't considering, that left people feeling unsafe and uncertain.
Yeah, the only difference is the leaving with hostages part.
Right.
Right, and like leaving with important information that really changes the war. Like, that's the only difference. But yeah, the inviolate tower burning and falling down on the city around it. I mean, the tower itself doesn't fall, but pieces of it definitely come hurtling downward. Yeah, there's definitely some parallels to we thought we were safe. What the hell is happening?
But then it kind of makes Egwene and not like this conspiracy theorist who's like, they're gonna attack the towers. And I was like, yeah, sure. He's like, no, they bombed the basement. Like, it's gonna get worse, right? Like, and everyone's like, yeah, nah, that'll never happen.
Yeah, it's less the conspiracy theory side of it and more just the sense of like our stronghold is on fire.
Right.
And we didn't think that was possible. And it
Right.
came from the air with none of the like ground assault that you would expect. And yeah, in the Tamora Pierce series, it's not the Alana books, but the Kell books that come after Alana. There's a scene in the 4th Kell book where the fort gets attacked. And I read an author's note or essay a couple years ago, I guess, where she talked about how she wrote that immediate aftermath of the attack scene as sort of a response to 9/11. Like, that was part of how she processed her feelings about it, was writing this scene of like a place that was supposed to be safe that had been all trashed and destroyed by the enemy. And that was like part of how she worked through her feelings. And it was like, when I then went back and read the book, I was like, oh my God, yeah, I can see it. I can see how she grafted 9/11 trauma into this fantasy world to like work through it. And yeah, this does not have any of the same visuals, but there are some certain emotional undertones that feel the same.
Mm-hmm. And this came out in what, 2006, I think, right? So
yeah.
You know, with significant lag time after, 9/11 to sort of, be in the psyche of the author, right? And still be fairly fresh, right? As we deal with the aftermath of it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, but also, anytime that your stronghold is attacked, it makes you feel unsafe. I mean, that's not unique to 9/11.
Well, no, but I mean, you have a tower which has a hole punched in it, 2/3 of the way up, right? With a smoking hole coming out of it, right? The visual is there, right?
That's true. Yeah.
This one is 2009. Thank you, Pants. I know it was early, late. Sometime in that range, but certainly after.
Yeah, well after.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily a hard comparison, but it's hard for me not to see the parallels there.
So this one's even more visually weird.
And the self-sacrifice. We talked about like the blood knives, right? Who are sacrificing themselves to do as much damage as possible.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're working on bringing the tower down in a more symbolic way than a literal way.
Yes.
But, also quite literal. If you can bring down the power structure, then the building doesn't matter so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But also remember, this entire scene is happening at night. Everything that's happening here, people are figuring out through the veil of darkness.
So yeah, there's this part argument then between Bryn and Suan about how he's like, you gave your word not to go in and rescue her, and she's like, well, loophole, 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 and he's like, oh God, I'm getting really sick of this, like breaking your word with loopholes, shit. And she's like, well, I'm doing it anyway.
She's like, well, guess who else you're sick of?
Right.
And then heads towards Gawyn's tent.
Our favorite character, yay!
And then POV break. And we switch to inside the tower where the good stuff is happening.
Why are the worst POVs always Gawyn involved? It's not so much that I hate Gawyn as I hate reading about Gawyn.
Anyway, about Egwene. We join Egwene in the tower. The tower shakes in the very first sentence of this paragraph, where the tower shakes repeatedly. And then when the tower stops shaking in the second chapter, it's a noticeable event.
Right, because it's Egwene fighting back.
Yeah, exactly. It's very much worth tracking. But yeah, we join Egwene and Nicola more or less where we left them. They're working their way down the hallway, and Nicola is still not completely convinced that it's not the last battle yet. And Egwene's like, it's freaking the Shan-Shan, and I'm going to freak out. Egwene definitely has a moment where she, is a small, terrified, traumatized girl who dealt with being imprisoned by the Shan-Shan, and then all her work in the dream and the real world, thinking about herself as Amerlin, pays off.
Right. I was going to say.
Her backbone, armors up, and she decides to go beast mode instead.
No, she pushed herself upright. No, she would not flee. She was Amerlin.
Yeah, and then she has this moment that reminds me of Leah, a woman who has notably stuck up for her as being an awesome Aes Sedai. Let them come, Egwene roared, opening herself to the source. Blessedly, enough time had passed to dull the fork root slightly, and she was able to grab a faint trickle of the power. It was tiny, perhaps the least amount of power she'd ever channeled. But she's like, it's enough. If I can open myself to a little bit, I think I can do more. I don't care. If I'm weak, I'm going to make it work for me. And it's just like, Leah is correct to put her pride in you.
Totally.
Leah is very proud of you right now. She just got a surge of pride wherever she is, and she doesn't even know why.
And in a lot of ways, I feel like what she's able to do is take inspiration from someone who can't channel very much, right? And figure out a way to turn that into not necessarily an advantage, but how to overcome that weakness. Is like, as long as I can channel, I can make a circle, which is something the Shan-Shan cannot do. It's why I think it's a really effective tool against the Shan-Shan, right? Is the idea of a circle of channelers, because the Adom, like she says, prevents that.
I love that their own wickedness prevents them from being effective against her. I love that they have the seeds of their own destruction just built in. Oh, you can't consent to being in these circles? Well, guess what other circles you can't consent to being in? Any power amplification, not for you.
Makes me wonder if the Shan-Shan could even use Angreal.
Right? Yeah.
Because that was sort of like, they would have to pull that power in through the Angreal, and that's not something they're doing. They're pulling it, the Soldom would have to be the one who would have to, because they're in control of the circle, right? So they would have to connect to the Adom.
But the Damani is the one that's actually channeling.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Can they bring a Terangrial? Well, they've already got a Terangrial in the Adom in the picture. But yeah, could they bring an Angreal?
Yeah, into the circle.
Picture?
In the Bowl of the Winds circle, if you're in a circle, you can a circle that you joined willingly, you can embrace an Angreal. But because the Adom prevents them from joining the circle outside of the Adom, would it prevent them from using an Angreal? Right? So the circle created by the Adom is something very different than a normal circle.
Or is it? That's kind of the question.
Yeah, or is it? Right. And so that's where, well, because it does. It has this restriction on it in that you cannot form a circle among channelers.
And we do know that opening yourself to another channeler and opening yourself to an Angreal are very, very similar processes. We know that that's the same. So if you can't open up to another person, does that mean you also can't open up to an object that would give you amplification?
And I believe that's the case. I don't think we ever see a Damane using Angreal.
No, we never see that.
Not in a collar, right? Former Damani, sure, but like, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we don't ever see it. And it makes sense, right? Because Damani don't get possessions. So, like, why would you ever consider giving an object of power to a Damani, even for the duration of a channeling event? Like, that seems very antithetical to their entire concept of being.
Right. So socially, you wouldn't give them one. But also, I have to wonder if, like, part of that reason they don't have any possessions is, like, they, Angreal aren't something they can really use.
And if they can't have possessions and they can't hide in Angreal, maybe there's some really old reasons that have been sort of lost in the mists of time. Or they just can't use them, and so the whole concept of Angreal has just fallen out of lore for them.
Right, because we don't really see any Seanchan be like, ooh, we want Angreal. They have Terangreal, sure. They're able to use those.
Yeah.
But those are usually used by channeling into them, not by having them join you in the circle of power.
And even once the Seanchan join our side, none of our guys on this side of the ocean ever suggest giving Angreal to the Seanchan channelers. There's few enough for the Westland channelers. They're definitely not trying experimentally to see how the Seanchan would do with them.
So yeah, I think the fact that she can use Vora's Sangreal and that she can join the circle are both things that the Seanchan cannot do.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I don't know if we have canonical evidence for it, but close enough.
The lack of evidence is not evidence, but in this case, it's compelling enough that I think that logically, the lack of being able to join a circle means you should also not be able to channel using Angreal.
Yeah, I would agree.
So Egwene goes out and basically she's like, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to form these circles and finds the novices, and these are all single-serving novices. Right, as far as I can tell, every
single serving. There's just like little yogurt cups, little single serving novices.
It's actually a reference to Fight Club. He talks about single serving friends on airplanes, people you make friends with on the airplane and then never see again.
Yeah, I've only seen that movie once, so I don't have all the dialogue memorized. But yeah, I forgot about that line. That's like one of the opening lines of the entire movie. Yeah,
well, it's because, they're on the airplane. So this would be a single serving Aes Sedai, right? This is one they're only ever in this chapter. We meet them once, we get to know them, and we'll never see them again. All these novices.
Yeah, there's Nicola and then all the other novices.
Right.
And some of them get names, some of them don't. But
Yasmin,
none of them...
Yatari, and Nala.
Yeah, I don't think any of them, if they got mentioned in any other things, it was as classmates of Egwene during her tower arc.
The wiki says they were not mentioned.
Okay, so yeah, literally, it's Nicola is the face of all the other novices. She's the one that we have to remember. Yeah, and Egwene says here, I will protect you, I promise. And when Nicola dies later in the battle with Masana in the Dream Tower, she thinks back to this moment being like, well, I can only protect you if you stay where I fucking told you to stay. Because Nicola is, in the battle against Egwene's wishes. And it's like, it's so sad because Egwene promised to protect her, but she also thinks like, well, I did tell her to not come into this battle. Like, that's what happens. You had to listen to me in order for my promise to hold. I was protecting you. But yeah.
I feel like Nicola and Aram have some parallels, right? This person who's like loyal to one of the main characters, but doesn't really listen to them that well and kind of goes in their own direction and then ends up dead. And the character's like, I told you something else and you didn't do it. I don't know how to stop you from dying in that situation, right? Like I can't be there.
Right. It's a better case scenario than with Aram because Nicola died trying to protect Egwene rather than trying to kill her, but they're both dead. So, it's unfortunate for our main character that they lost a follower due to said follower not really listening to the person they idolize. But she lives through this battle, which is cool. So yeah, Egwene's idea is basically find the novices, get enough power to travel to the basement where the Angreal are so she can get an Angreal that allows her to use those novices to become a one-woman army.
Mm-hmm. And, this scene always brings up the question of what the fuck are the Chosen doing?
Truly. You're telling me the Chosen couldn't figure out where this room is and gateway into it? Really?
Clearly, I get that it's got all the protections, from walking in, although Thane got in there, right? No problem. But it has no protections from the gateway. None, right? We are beyond that point in history where they thought they had to protect from gateways because gateways didn't exist. And the fact that the Forsaken frequently bemoan they can't find. And you got Masana there in the tower, who could have compelled anyone at any time to go down into to open up the store, tell her where it is, open it up, and ransack it and distribute that to the Forsaken, extract a price from the other Forsaken, right? Like, yeah, this is just one of those things where why the tower store of Angreal wasn't raided by the Forsaken was one of those things that I think I've always wondered, like, did Jordan just overlook that? Did he just not think about it? Like, I get that all the other ones, like the hold in the Heart of the Stone wasn't well advertised. No one really knew what it was. No one knew about the store in Iridian. Those were always secret. But like the hold in the White Tower should have been fucking raided by the Forsaken.
I mean, especially given that a bunch of Black Aja did take a bunch of Terangreal from the tower and fled.
And didn't bother with the Angreal? Or the Sangreal?
Yeah, a lot of loose ends hanging around there. And yeah, if Egwene had triggered a trap on her way in and gotten, completely killed, like just walking into the room, then we would know. But she doesn't. She just waltzes in there, grabs what she needs because no one's ever thought to raid the place before, and then goes and kicks ass. It's a very weird plot hole.
Yeah, I would put this solidly in the plot hole category, right? Like, I don't see an explanation for it.
Yeah, the information exists, the availability exists, the means, the motive, the characters. Like, there's no reason why this room isn't a bare, empty room. It should be cleaned out. Vorus Sangreal should be in Masana's possession already, really.
And certainly, these characters don't need to learn the tower to teleport around, like they've lived there for years, right?
Oh,
so they,
yeah, for sure.
the gateway stuff is all on the up and up as far as I can tell, and they're doing short distance gateways, which should also be easier.
Yeah, she knows exactly where in the tower she's going. The tower feels like home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I love that she has the power of like 4 people, and she's like almost as much as I could do on my own.
I know, right? Because like these women are, not notably weak. It's not like they've been selected for their weakness. They're just random novices. They're probably reasonably strong. And she's like, 4. I'm back to 80%. That's good enough. Swan thinks about how she can't use a gateway. Like she used to be able to make a gateway, but she can't use a gateway. She can't make a gateway anymore because of how weak she is. Egwene at 80% or whatever is able to make a gateway. Like that's how strong she is, that even not fully back to capacity, she's like, well, a gateway is well within reach now. Excellent. And
it also kind of shows you the overlap between the male and female halves, because there's lots of men who can't make gateways, right?
Yeah, I think it's harder for them. I think it's a higher threshold.
Okay.
And also, I just want to point out these novices, Egwene thinks of them as being all flighty and screaming and being very, childish. But like in 5 minutes, they managed to learn this new trick. I'm like, that's honestly pretty impressive. Like, these are people who are, like, in an active war zone, woken up out of a sound sleep and thrust into their home being an active war zone, and they are learning a new power maneuver. Calming their minds, doing the meditation, getting the thing, practicing the move. Like, that's impressive.
It is impressive. They only have to join once, and then they're in, right? They don't have to, like, do it multiple times. But, yeah, it's like they don't have to master the skill. They just have to get there once. But it's nice.
Right. But they're like watching each other and like trying and managing, like it's very impressive. She leaves for a couple minutes and comes back and they are ready to go. They have organized themselves into little batteries that she can use.
Well, she's a good leader, supposedly.
They all look up to her a lot. Like the novices of the White Tower in particular have really been taking a lot of their lead from her and getting ready for this moment. Of all the different groups of women, the White Tower novices and accepted are the ones that are most set up to help her.
And in a lot of ways, it's like she has created this new generation of novices and accepted, both by recruiting from outside the set age group and recruiting in the rebels, and then also winning over all the novices in the tower. And that combined with having the battle ends up having an uneven effect where a lot of the Aes Sedai are taken and killed and a lot of the novices survive. And then you combine that with the purging with the Black Aja, right? Like where she takes out another group of Aes Sedai. It's obvious that what's left, is this group of even after Egwene dies, there's going to be this massive imbalance of women who admire and find her example to be the right way to do things. And then this tiny minority of relatively weak, small group of Aes Sedai who are going to cling to tradition. She's changing the tower in immense ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she should have been alive to continue that.
Yup.
Don't like the choice to kill her. Anyway.
Nope.
Do you want to go through the things that are in the room of power?
Yeah, let's do that.
The ter'angreal and the angreal? Yeah. Crystal globes.
I'm assuming like the far-seeing and talking devices.
Sort of the traditional, like...
Yeah, Palantir. It's a Palantir.
Just be careful looking through the eyes of Sauron may come out on the other side. Like, be very careful.
Yeah, you do want to be careful with those. They might have a virus.
No, they're connected to the network, right?
Exactly.
Small exotic statues.
I'm guessing like the animals that have never been seen before. I feel like that's often what they describe these as, like birds and beasts that people have never seen before. They might also be like animal-human hybrid type things. They don't have to be like exotic dancer style exotic. They could just be, fanciful human animal hybrid type exotic.
And these could be a mix of ter'angreal. I don't really see any hint to their purpose, right? Like going through them.
I'm assuming it's a mix of things. Probably a lot of ter'angreal with different purposes. Probably some are very mundane, some are very frivolous, some are quite serious, probably with no sorting whatsoever.
A glass pendant which reflected blue in the light. I mean, that to me feels like an angreal.
Yeah. Just something like a beautiful focus stone. That seems like it's going to be an angreal rather than any kind of ter'angreal.
A large set of metal gauntlets lined at the cuffs with fire drops.
That's gotta be something cool.
I imagine these are control cuffs for something bigger, right? That you have some sort of like digging machine or something, and these are like the control cuffs. Because I feel like we've had helmets that control things before, right? And so these are like, I feel like metal gauntlets that you would put on to like control
like
bigger.
VR gloves.
Yeah, totally. Exactly like that.
Yeah, like heavy equipment. Yeah, I like that. Metal gauntlets with fire drops. It's some kind of like big, heavy, like mining equipment or something. Maybe like works with rockets.
Because like we've seen like the helmet to control show wings, I think is what that was, Yeah.
Yeah, there's just so many things it could be from so many different IPs. It's like, yeah, gauntlets with fire drops on them. That's something cool. It's something cool. Either that or it's like a big power up thing. But given the show wings helmet, I really like the equipment control idea.
Or, I mean, it would be also cool to be like, oh, you put those both on and you're covered in a whole set of armor. You just put on the gauntlets and everything else is like power controlled, sort of those create the force field or whatever, and you activate them by touching the gemstones together. So, I mean, there's all sorts of things you can come up with, right? Because, like, we certainly know the Paralis net has all sorts of cool physical effects and armor-like effects and things like that. So, I mean, form doesn't necessarily follow function with ter'angreal. That's what makes them so interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The channeling built atop of them has very little to do with the function and the form that they're in.
Yeah.
And then you have things in the world that aren't really built, that aren't ter'angreal, that are still seem to be objects of power. I'm thinking the portal stones and the Horn of Valir, specifically.
Yeah.
And I have to wonder if those weren't somehow created. I always think that the horn has to be created by the dragon somehow in his moment of being able to control the world. But anyway, we can talk about that later.
And then she finds the one that matters.
Yeah, she gets Vora's Sangreal, right?
Which is literally a wand. She literally finds a wand. She finds a magic freaking wand. So yeah, she now is completely powered up to superhuman levels. She's ready to go. And she goes back to the novices. And I noticed one of the novices asks, like, are you escaping? She is not the first person to think that in these 2 chapters. Multiple people are like, wait a second. Are you leaving? Can I go with you? Why haven't you left? You could have left this whole time. Are you taking me with you? Like, this is a theme that repeats. And every time she's like, no, my job is to be the White Tower in every sense of the word. And now she is all kitted out. All she needed was one magic wand. And now she is ready to defend the White Tower so aggressively that she is why the battle turns.
Which, I mean, that is... It's like giving Rand the Chosen Call, right? Like maybe not quite that level of powerful, maybe like Kalendor, but still, that is a battleship in the middle of a bunch of tanks.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
It's an incredible advantage.
Well, and she has like channelers backing her up too, right? She does have, a a circle.
5 other groups of circles, right? So they're holding off the soldiers. So she has the novices fighting the soldiers. And I do really like the way she links them up. She puts the person with the most skill in charge, not necessarily the one with the most power. Now, in the Wheel of Time, there's been a certain level of like, the more powerful you are, the quicker you can learn things. There is that level of like, Nynaeve can learn anything just by seeing it once. And that seems to hold for the channelers who are at her level of power.
Yeah, but still, she knows all of their relative strengths, and she's like, intelligence matters the most when it comes to leading a circle, because people are going to die if you're a dumbass.
You have to know when to strike, how to defend yourself. Like, yeah.
And you get the strength of everyone in the circle behind you. So there's no wasting of strength. There's only wasting of a slight edge in learning. You don't need to learn. You need to keep your people alive and kill the enemy. Like, that's all you need to do today.
Realistic, I think we've talked about this, but teaching a group of novices how to form a circle should really be one of the first things they learn, because
seriously,
that's how you teach, right? Isn't that one of the things that Lanfear, that Asmodean says to Rand? He's like, if you really wanted to learn from me, Lanfear would hang around and put us in a circle, because that is the quickest way to learn and guide somebody, is basically, we're both in the circle, I do the channeling, and you're going to feel it.
Yeah, that should be like week 2, we learned how to link. That should be like, after you learn how to seize the source, the next thing is how to be in a circle with someone. And then the rest is downhill.
We want any evidence the Aes Sedai do it backwards, and probably make it much harder to learn, is instead of like, okay, bring you into circle and teach you stuff so that you are skilled as you gain power. They're like, no. We don't want you to teach you anything. You have to like be really careful, and they're just, I feel like they're backwards in all their ways of teaching.
It's the Black Gotcha. And POV switch back to Swan. We get some literal Egwene will be mad about it now, but she'll be thankful about it later rationale from Swan, which is just like, no, that's not how you show respect to someone, is say, well, you'll thank me later. That is never the sign of actual respect. Don't do that to someone. You'll thank me later means that you're convincing yourself to do something that's really, really messed up when it comes to someone's free will and autonomy. Unless you're like literally a doctor and you're dealing with triaging people, because at that point you are qualified to make those choices. Lots of people have decided you're allowed to do that now. And yeah, Gawyn just is super down to do literally anything. Swan says, will you take my help in getting you into Tarvalon as repayment for my life? And Gawyn, before she even finishes the damn sentence, is saying, yeah, totally, all you want to, it's fine, let's go. Like, he just is so single-minded. Even when we get into his POV later, he's just so happy to be doing something. And it's like, you do realize that sometimes not doing something is the most helpful thing you can do, right? No, you don't realize that at all. Never mind.
You know what would make someone single-minded? Being compelled.
Thinking with a small head.
Well, okay, that does feel like compulsion sometimes. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to do this. Why am I doing this? Oh, right. Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, evolution, unfortunately, really gave us a Achilles heel on that one.
Oh God, why? Yeah, no. Fuck hormones, man. You don't control your own brain.
As I was saying earlier, getting on hormone assistance helped with my entire life. Hormones, more than your gut even, hormones are the true brains behind the operation. Like, fuck.
Damn it, glands. Controlling my hormones.
Literally.
Ask me again why I don't believe in free will.
No, I don't need that perspective. I've got enough issues.
But yeah, I like the argument that Bryn makes that, like, you've made oath breaking far too convenient, Suan, and I don't want it to be a habit from you. He's like, I will not be a party to you breaking your oath again. But then, like, he just gives in. He's like, sure, fine, you're going in anyway. I'll make sure you're not dying. Like, there's just this moment of resistance, and he's like, yeah, I give up.
Thinking with a small head.
It's a theme in this chapter.
It is. Swan is literally using two men's inability to think past their fifis to completely screw up Egwene's plans.
So Brynn makes her promise to do two things. The first is that he bonds her as warder. The second turns out to be that he marries her. She marries him.
Yeah. Yeah. His demands are, let's be completely bound together for the rest of our natural lives, to the point of having like a magical problem with the other one dying.
Which is like, okay, maybe communicate about this a little bit more, but like it's been coming for a while. They've been on this path of they've been dating for a long time. She's been sleeping in his tent. Like, yeah, I mean, in whatever world this is dating, and this is Robert Jordan's version of people dating, whatever the two of them have been going through. It's very antagonistic, it's very argumentative, and it's a very typical love story that Jordan creates.
Yeah, it's inevitable with what he's done, but yeah, everyone who preferred Swan to not be with Gareth Brynn is upset by this development and wishes that it would not happen. But yeah, it's like clearly they've both been getting interested in each other for a while. It's not truly out of the blue. We all saw it coming. This is not a Moiraine and Tom situation.
Which I don't think was out of the blue either. She was a mighty fine woman for quite some time. And that gap when they didn't see each other was actually the shortest period of time in the series.
That's fair.
Even though it felt like forever, if you dial it out in real time. From her disappearance to the last battle is in only about 6 months, I think. Whereas the rest of the books are like a year and a half. So
yeah, no, I mean, the part where Tom was willing to like completely go on a suicide mission to save her, clearly he had feelings for her. It wasn't like totally out of the blue, but it also surprised me when it first happened in the books in a way that this did not. This to me felt like it was telegraphed way more obviously than that. For sure. Yes. Yeah. No, this was her blue eyes and her being in the tent and her constant anger at him, right? Like Moiraine and Tom just didn't necessarily think about each other that much, which I think is why it came out as a surprise. Right. Exactly. Brynn and Swan have clearly been thinking about each other. We have spent so many pages of them thinking about it.
That's a good point. Yeah, we never really get Moraine's. We do. Moraine's take about who she knows who she will marry is, I think, the most we get out of her, right? And then you're like, oh, girl, wait, you know who you're going to marry? Who? And then there's sort of you look around and be like, who have you been fond of, or who's been fond of you, right? Like, it's not going to be Lan.
Right. Yeah. No, I just always assumed that she was being sarcastic. I never thought that it actually was a reference to anything real. I thought she was just telling these girls to like go have a, relationship with a dog if they needed to. Like I thought it was one of those comments, I didn't think there was anything more to read into it. I never gave it a second thought.
It's one of the many reasons why Moiraine was never going to die, right? Is she knew who she was going to marry and she hadn't married anybody yet, so she can't have died yet.
Yeah, I always figured it was her commenting on how she wasn't going to marry anyone and then just moving on with her life.
That's totally fair.
I clearly I was wrong about that one.
Yes.
Yeah, like that's just all right.
And who knows? I now that I know the truth, I don't remember what I thought back then.
Sure, yeah. But anyway, Brynn's reaction to getting bonded is to go more or less what Gawyn thinks later on, which is you need to get every man who can be bonded right the fuck now. This would make such a big difference in every martial conflict that we have to deal with between here and, the literal last battle and all that entails. Like every soldier who can be bonded should be bonded. Like, why are you not doing this in droves to the armies? What the hell? Like they both have the same thought and Swan is very dismissive of it, but like I see where they're coming from.
I do too. Yeah. Because it's a small advantage, but every contest becomes, comes right down to the edge. And so a small advantage over all these soldiers would make a big advantage.
Yeah, exactly. Especially for an elite force, especially for people who are trying to be on the front lines of like doing really important stuff. Like it makes sense that Aes Sedai's personal bodyguards have this, but like surely there are other special forces that could benefit from it and make a really, really big difference. And yeah, there's a big hazard when they die. That is an issue, but like I can see where Gareth Brynn is like, my soldiers could do amazing things if they just had this extra 5% speed advantage.
And that's where I'd come down on is any Aes Sedai who took on many warders who were going into battle would inevitably lose some of them and be incapacitated by the grief and the loss of a warder, and often many times over. And so all of a sudden, to give a slight boost to some of your warriors, you're taking a bunch of your Aes Sedai off the field.
Yeah, it's a problem, but like maybe you should figure out how to engineer something that could help instead of just sequestering it behind we don't think about that sort of wall of silence.
Some sort of energy boost bond that didn't have the same sort of permanence of a warder bond.
Right, like the Aes Sedai were even talking about that when it came to dealing with men who could channel. The Red Sisters were like, yeah, we think we could modify the warder bond to allow us to keep men who could channel on a leash and at arm's length. We think we could do both. So it's like,
yeah, but that's just compulsion.
There if you right, but I'm just saying, like, the option to tweak with it is there. Like, the concept of playing with that bond is not off the table, and yet no one's ever thought of how to make that apply to like the entire Tower Guard. Like, I don't know, seems like a missed opportunity. But alas, we just have this is honestly, in my opinion, one of the best like men are from Mars, women are from Venus comedic moments. Swan's thoughts here. She rolled her eyes. Men. She had given him a deeply personal and emotional connection to another person, the likes of which even husbands and wives would never know, and all he could think about was how much better he might have been at swordplay.
I mean, he later does think about how much of a bond it is and stuff like that. But like, yeah, his first instinct is like, ooh, I feel good.
Well, and just the way that she thinks about it, the way that she rolls her eyes with these words is just so like, this is actually a funny moment of Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. I actually find it amusing, just the way that Brandon Sanderson like frames their two thoughts about this moment. It's just, I'm like, okay, I'll allow that one. That men are so silly and women are also silly. This one hits for me. This one's funny. Most of the time I just roll my eyes and wish that it wasn't there. This one actually like tickles me.
Man flexes when they're like, can you just feel your emotions for a second?
Exactly. Like this is a deeply complicated and emotional thing, and you're just like, grr, I can jump tall.
I can jump tall.
I can words well.
Yeah, and he says, I'll tell you the second at a later time. We find out in chapter 43. So 3 chapters from now.
He can't hold that idea in too long. He's really, really wants to marry her. He's not going to hold on to that secret for a while.
And there's this moment that I really love where he's like, I can sense your emotions. I can sense, ooh. And she goes, he can tell that I half want him to demand something indecent of me. Susan realized aghast. Bloody ashes. And he's like, oh, you dirty little Suan.
Yeah, you thought she was such a prude, but if you can feel her emotions, it turns out. I'm busted for horny.
Busted for horny, yeah. Smack. Enough. Go in horny timeout, Suan.
Yeah, he had no idea she was that into him.
Right. He's like, well, wish she hadn't been sleeping on the pallet all this time.
Right? He's like, damn, I should have popped this question a long time ago.
So immediately after feeling that, he's like, I'll get my best 100 guys.
Yeah, anyway.
You need to survive this. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's like, I'm going to bring like the very best bodyguards I can, because this is not dying before I have a chance to take you to like not the pallet in the corner.
I'm going to get laid.
Yeah, and then Gawyn rides up with this comedic timing and is like, what is going on between you two? I was gone for 5 minutes and the vibes have totally changed.
And of course, Suwan's like, we're not going in. It's just not the two of us. It's us and 100 soldiers, which certainly ups our chance of surviving.
This means our chances of surviving long enough to take Egwene just improved, which is fortunate since after we're about to do, she'll undoubtedly want the privilege of killing us personally. That is Sanderson dry humor that just makes me laugh because like, that feels accurate to Swan's character and to the dynamic. She knows she's in the wrong. She knows she's in the wrong. And this is why she's moving the goalposts so much, is because she's already committed to doing something she knows is wrong. So the goalposts are absolutely fluid. She's not even internally consistent to herself already. They haven't even taken off yet.
She's getting She's getting a Gawyn. She's getting Egwene out, whether she wants to come out or not.
Yeah. She knows best because she's the true Amerlin. Bad Swan. Bad Swan. Go to horny jail, and then after that, go to not listening to Egwene jail.
Another POV switch. There's going to be an awful lot of these in these two chapters because we are in battle mode.
And we now switch to an Adalorna POV. I think we have 2 of these ever. She's not a common POV.
No. Yeah, don't see how many.
I'm pretty sure that she's in the decision-making chapter later as kind of a follow-up to this.
Not as far as I can tell.
No? Is this the only time she has a POV?
As far as I can tell, yeah.
Oh.
But she is, I mean, you know, sometimes it's incomplete.
Well, we'll find out later. Either way, it's very, very rare. And this, because we're in battle mode, we need eyes on the ground everywhere. And we don't have the plot maneuverability to have a main character on every part of ground. So we're going to bring in Adalorna. And she has existed before and since. She's a real character, not just sprinkled in for spice.
No, because we get Saren's POV twice, but only Adalorna once.
Oh, Adalorna has a lot to say in that POV, but she is not the POV itself.
Yes. Yeah, and Adalorna was punished by Elida for not returning Angreal.
That was like planted in her room.
I think it was just like, it wasn't even planted.
No, it wasn't. Yeah.
It was just like, oh, everyone just like hangs on to one or two, right? And like they kind of, they would never keep them permanently, but they have them for like 50 years. So it kind of becomes their Terangreal or whatever.
But yeah, she was one of the ones singled out for that really intense punishment that was essentially meant to divide the tower and make mistrust between the Ajas.
And I think that was at the Black Aja's direction.
Yes, Alviarin very specifically told Elida to do that, and Elida said, that's ridiculous. Why would I do that? And Alviarin did Black Aja things at her to make it happen.
Because again, at the time, Red and the Green had a bit of an alliance, and this broke that alliance up.
Right. Yeah, because there was 2 women who got punished in that, and it was very specifically calculated to fracture those Ajas apart.
Josane was also punished of the Green.
Oh, Josane just died in this POV. Adalorna thinks about how she had seen Josane die as a weave of air had destroyed the wall beside her.
Right, yeah.
So she just died. Oof.
So Jordan clearly looked back at that chapter and went, okay, I've got these 2 Aes Sedai. I'm going to kill one and have the other one. Like,
Good tie-in.
Yeah, good. Well done. There is a certain amount of checking these Aes Sedai off, right? As he goes through and like gives them each a scene. He's going back and like, I've noticed he touches on most of the Aes Sedai who were given significant roles.
Yeah.
I think he had a list of Aes Sedai he wanted to like give some resolution to in these books.
Yeah. It was a bit of a hit and a miss on the whole list, but yeah, sometimes he really does a good job with that. And I think Adalorna's a good one for that. And she's currently in a situation much like Egwene in that she's running down the hallways, but she's doing much more poorly than Egwene because she's just been banding together with people and then getting shattered apart and seeing people die and seeing people get captured, and she doesn't have anyone to fight with. And she's, having the inverse experience of Egwene all the way to the point of getting captured by the collar. And then Egwene saves her and she becomes part of Egwene's team, and it's great. But she starts out in a very similar to Egwene situation, which makes sense, especially because she's the captain general of the Green. And that's, Egwene would have been green if she had her choice.
Right. So this would have been, and it makes sense. This was the leader in a battle situation you would expect to take command, rise up, unite people, bring them together, and have them fighting back against the Shan-Chan, right? She's the battle leader.
The battle Aja should be leading the charge against these invaders. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I think in a lot of ways, having her be completely defeated and having Egwene rescue her shows you the level, is trying to show you just the level of incompetence the defenders of the White Tower are at, and the way Egwene's able to step up and like take charge even over this person.
Right. Yeah, because Adalorna even thinks like, about how she's the captain general. She has to like grit her teeth and not run and hide. She has to stand for the tower, right? Like what Egwene is doing, but like at a slightly lower level because, not Amerlin, just battle leader. And then she very allegorically runs away from the Shanchan so hard she almost runs off the edge of a cliff. Like she almost runs out the side of the building because she's not looking where she's going.
She almost Wile E. Coyotes herself.
Yeah, exactly, which is just so allegorical for everything that's happening. The White Tower is falling apart and on fire, and the Aes Sedai who should be responding effectively are running around and almost falling out of holes in the walls. Right? Like, it's just so visually striking and allegorically correct for the whole situation.
And I get why it's like they're not going down to the storeroom because it would take probably like an hour to get down there, get to the Angreal and come back up if you don't have a gateway, right? So maybe it doesn't make a lot of sense to send someone down there, or maybe they did send someone down there, but I can see why they don't have a lot of Angreal to back themselves up with.
I feel like the Green Aja should have had a break glass in case of emergency case of battle tried Terangreal specifically that were exactly meant to help them defend the tower in the last extreme.
It also feels like there should be wards built into the tower that could be activated as defensive.
Yeah. Where's the laser eyes coming out of the rain spout gargoyles?
And the only thing I'm thinking of is like not using the power as a weapon, right? Like and not building weapons, right? That makes it very hard to build things that can actually defend the tower.
Egwene has no problem defending the tower.
Well, she hasn't sworn the 3 oaths, and she even thinks about how the fact that she's violating the shit out of them, and that doesn't bother her because it's important to make the Shanchan pay. She is absolutely not following the 3 oaths in this moment.
You think the 3 oaths would have kept her from blasting so hard during this battle?
I think she would have had trouble killing abducted sisters. Yes.
Specifically that part. She could have attacked the people who were flying at her, throwing weaves at her, but she couldn't have attacked the fleeing. Oh, that's an interesting point. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the tower should be able to just like have a weave comes up that makes the whole like outside just get electrified, so that way anything crawling up the side like, gets paralyzed and falls off.
In the defense of yourself or a sister or a warder, right? Like you can basically defend any of those 3, and defend the tower is defending all of them at all times. So like, I don't think there's any problem with attacking the Shanchan when they're attacking the tower. You are defending yourself, your sisters, and your warders, right? And it's totally allowed in the oaths to attack. But I think like once they have taken an Aes Sedai and are fleeing, then you're killing an innocent Aes Sedai with the power. You're using it as a weapon against someone who's not attacking you, who's not a dark friend. That's pretty rough.
Is saving them from a fate worse than death a sufficient loophole for the oaths?
Right.
That's a good point, Line-Blinded Fool. If they could electrify the tower, that would have been used to punish novices and take out the competition. Look, maybe they could have just programmed it to be intelligent enough to only know when people were the enemy. That's a thing that they could have done for sure, right?
How exactly do you determine friend from foe from enemy? Is it a code? Is it a smell?
Yeah, okay, that's complicated.
Yeah.
But a little bit of like, the wall from Game of Thrones could have been cool. A little bit of, oh yeah, the walls have laser beams that come out of the gargoyle eyes when someone, hits the red panic button under their desk. Like, that would have been cool.
You just want some defenses in place. I get you.
So yeah, then we get this really lovely triumphant moment where Adalorna is at the absolute nadir of what can happen to an Aes Sedai, being told she's going to be a Damani forever.
Good Damani, you'll be civvy.
Yeah, and then the collar unclips, and that bitch turns into a torch, and it's great. And then she turns around, and Egwene's just standing on a pile of rubble in her torn, dirty dress, just hair blowing in the wind, like
I want to read this
directing
paragraph.
novices. Oh yeah, it's so good. It's so good. It's so good.
Adalorna turned hesitantly. A woman in white stood atop the rubble, a short distance away. A massive halo of power surrounding her, her arm outstretched toward the fleeing soldiers, her eyes intense. The woman stood like vengeance itself, the power of Saidar like a storm around her. The very air seemed alight, and her brown hair blew from the wind of the open gap in the wall beside them. Egwene Alvear.
It's just so good. It's so visual. It's so powerful. Sanderson, you magnificent man.
That's just like her standing there glowing with power, open hole in the wall, 22 stories up, hair blowing in the wind, throwing blasts of fire. and lightning out the window, right? And her sort of being in the tower and then surrounded by the tower and embodying the tower, throwing out the power. She is the defenses we wanted, right? She is the source of power for those defenses.
Yeah, all it takes is one woman with a magic wand and the righteous fury of a 3,000-year-old institution behind her. And like, yeah, the tower gets punched in its heart so hard that it unleashes its full Egwene on the Shan-Chan.
And like in the way that she, as the Amyrlin, is the White Tower, and how she defeats Masana by like being the tower, right? And this sort of is that happening physically, right?
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like the fact that she does this battle and succeeds so tremendously and uses so much power in doing it helps her take Masana down. Because it's like, after you beat back your fear of the Shan-Chan and their raid with Vorasa Ungreal, is Masana trying to insult you really gonna prick your bubble? You know? Nah, it's almost easy. It's, as a boss fight, it's almost a letdown, you know? Because she just owns so hard here.
No, and then when Adalorna takes over and Egwene's like, no. You will call me Amyrlin. I am in charge. I have all of this power behind me. You just got captured. I had to save your ass. Until this is over, call me mother. If you want to beat me afterwards, fine. But we are in the middle of a battle. You do not change command.
Yeah, like, oh, I'm in command. We aren't. There is no room to debate that until the attack is over. We can go back to the power struggles, but I am in command, and like, you can get out of my way or get flattened by me right now.
Or I'll just give you back to the Shan-Chan, right? Like,
yeah, like, what the fuck ever, Adalorna. And then Adalorna is like, oh, I am the battle Aja, and the Amyrlin has just shown up. I guess I will, fall into place at her right hand the way that the battle leader should, Because that's where the Green Aja head should be, is with the Amyrlin organizing the defenses. That is absolutely where she should be. And then she asks about Adalorna's warders, and she, reports, oh, yeah, one's dead, one's wounded, one's alive. And Egwene is immediately like, wow, you're really strong and amazing for not being in a puddle. And Adalorna's like, why does that make me feel good? It's like, because you just gave her respect as the Amyrlin, and the Amyrlin thinks you're strong. Of course you feel good about it.
Also, a little foreshadowing that Egwene doesn't handle losing a warder nearly as well.
Oh, yeah. She can't do that. She thinks she can. She even says Egwene the Amyrlin mourns for Egwene the girl, but it doesn't matter. And then later she says, that was a dumb decision. I couldn't do that. And I think, yeah, it's because Adalorna shows her that if you're, experienced at having a warder and losing them, it is possible to power through as the head of your Aja. But yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. Not just every woman can do that.
So Egwene says how familiar you are with the tower's Ungreal storerooms. And very Adalorna says, which again, I think is a funny reference to the fact that she was punished for keeping Terangreal. And she's like, no, I know those rooms.
I didn't even check up on that. Nice.
That's why I think she was picked for this role, because it's like, oh yeah, this is someone who definitely knows the storerooms, because she's got her grubby little hands in there and stolen a bunch of them. I mean, stolen, whatever, yeah.
Oh yeah, I know exactly which ones people won't notice if I hang on to.
So Egwene shows her the gateway, because apparently she's found out, because in the beginning of the chapter she was like, don't show anybody this, but now she's like, well, Elida's been showing everybody this, so screw it. Like, the knowledge is out. I'm not hiding it from anybody by not showing them.
Yeah, that report gets to her off screen, but yeah, I just had a report that Elida has been spreading knowledge of the weave, so fuck. Yeah, I didn't quite notice that her level of secrecy changes within the chapter. I didn't quite pick up on that, but yeah. It's out now, and she accurately says if one woman who knows that gets taken by the Shan-Chan, then the Shan-Chan have it. So we just might as well spread it as widely as we can, because the Shan-Chan are about to have it.
Right. And it's not even someone who Elida taught. It's Elida. They get Elida.
The irony of it being Elida herself rather than someone she spread it to.
So we know for sure, they have that knowledge.
Yeah. And then... yeah, we get this great moment where Adalorna's like, wait, you could have left the entire time? And Egwene says, no, I couldn't. My duty is to stay here. I didn't stay here because I had to. I stayed here because I had to. Like, you understand. And Adalorna's like, oh, shit. This really is the Amyrlin. It's a good moment. It's a good ringing moment to end the chapter on.
But, you know, we go right into the next chapter, which is just the same scene, flashing back to another POV switch, back to Gareth Bryn.
Yeah, it literally could have just been a POV switch with no chapter break at all. Le pouf. Technically, there's a different chapter title and chapter logo, A Fount of Power, The Bull, respectively. But it's the same story. It's just a POV switch.
Well, I'll read this in. A Fount of Power. "Well, tie a kerchief on my face and call me Aiel," said one of Bryn's soldiers, kneeling beside the general at the prow of their narrow boat. "It really is there." Gawyn squatted at the prow of his own boat, the dark waters rippling and lapping at the sides of the vessel. They'd needed 13 boats to carry them all, and had set into the river quietly and easily. At least, they had once Suan Sanche had finally finished her inspection of the boats and decided they were river-worthy. Barely. Each vessel carried a single shielded lantern. Gawyn could barely make out the other boats sliding over the ebony water, the soldiers rowing them in near silence as they pulled up beside the stonework embankment on Tar Valon's southwestern side. The flashes of light in the sky were distracting, and Gawyn kept finding himself glancing up to see serpentine beasts illuminated briefly by cold white lightning or blazing crimson fire. The white tower itself seemed to burn. That guy in the beginning, "Well, tie a kerchief on my face and call me Aiel." All right. You know?
Yeah, it's such a funny phrase, and yet it feels so right.
Yeah, it does.
Tie a kerchief on my face and call me Aiel.
But yeah, the tower's on fire, right? You got fire coming in, fire going out. Like, you know, there's Aes Sedai actively putting out the fires, but there's a lot of energy being thrown around.
And there's like rock falling from down from up above. Like, this is, again, one of those scenes where I would not normally feel like I was visualizing it very well, but under Sanderson's writing, like, I can hear it, I can smell it, I can see it. It's really chaotic and noisy, and it's a small party of 100, and they totally manage to just slip through the chaos because there's that much going on.
And this is one, he does a much better blow-by-blow visualization, I think. And which is one of the reasons why I was very happy when this came out, that he was writing these books, because I was so excited to see the action and see the battles and see all the implications of the power being used. And I always thought Sanderson did a really good job with that.
Yeah. So they boat up to the island. There's ogier carved bulwarks that come down into the water to, prevent erosion. It's fortunate that the river level is low enough they can get in. Apparently, the river level changes enough that in some years, this whole passage would be underwater. So, lucky for them.
I assume there's been a drought because it's been dry, right? The Dark One's touch and the hotness and all that kind of stuff.
But then the winter came with all the snow. So, I guess because the snow is still frozen. But anyway, it's not a very full river at the moment, so they're able to get in to this passage that's just hidden in the rocks, in the bulwarks. It's built in. It's not like a natural passage. It's built.
Mm-hmm. It's like a service passage.
And there's this great discussion between Bryn and Swan where she's like, how could this exist? I thought that I knew that there were 6 ways on and off the island and that was it. And Bryn's like, no. For an invading army, the city is impenetrable. But a place like this, tighter than a tick, can still have a dozen holes big enough for fleas to slip through. And I just think that's, a fun little bit of important information, is that, like, every defense has holes. It's just a matter of what you're trying to get through those holes depends how impenetrable a place is. It's worth remembering.
It's like the frequency affects the hole size at which something can penetrate. So if you want to block higher frequency things, you make smaller holes.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
yeah.
Scale's crazy, man. I think so much of our universe is based around the scale of things.
Isn't it funny how we're right in the middle of the scale? No, in both directions.
Yeah, depending on how you define your scale, sure.
Yeah. I read a really trippy book several years ago called The View from the Center of the Universe. And that was kind of the whole thing, was going through every different way of looking at that question, being like, we're at the middle of the scale every direction you look. What the fuck does that say about the world? Is that just because we're perfectly positioned in the middle? Or is it like in the universe and it's just everything looks equally far away because there actually isn't an edge? It was a very trippy way of looking at things.
Well, I mean, obviously the observable universe, we're always going to be in the center of that because light has a speed.
Right, yeah, exactly.
We are in the center of our own universes because
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And does that ever have a real world corollary, or is it always a figment of our own, way of looking at the world and those biases? And, it's an interesting question to ask, to take it branch of science by branch of science and really ask it, because you end up kind of mind fucked by the end. It's pretty trippy.
I got a little too deep into the philosophy there. Where were we?
We're currently tying up beggars who hang out in the tunnel as the party disembarks, because they might, sell the information in the middle of a war. So it seems like now is not the time.
It does seem a little like a detail that didn't need to be included.
But whatever. I also feel like Tarvalin is not the kind of city that should have beggars in it.
The point is, the light has really fucked up Tarvalin, so it didn't used to, but now it does. There's trash and there's beggars and people not being taken care of.
It's been like 3 months. What in the no social safety net is happening?
Bad shit. And don't forget that, all around the countryside, food's failing. People are flocking to the cities for help. People are gathering to be recruited into armies for the last battle. So you have a lot of people on the streets.
Yeah, I guess the whole siege of Tarvalin has also changed the dynamic in a more immediate way. But yeah, that's what's happening. And then they pull out some tower guard uniforms so that they can disguise themselves as the enemy, which I'm pretty sure is not allowed by the correct rules of war. Pretty sure you're not supposed to do that, but they do it because it's helpful.
But they're being spies, not soldiers, right?
Yeah, that's true. They're not on a killing mission, so that is different. Yeah, they have some rapidly made uniforms so that they can disguise themselves as just another unit of the Tower Guard, which allows them to not bother having to sneak through the city, which spares us a lot of tedious pages of sneaking.
Mm-hmm. I like the description of the Rockin' swooping and spinning about the tower like gulls circling a dead whale in the ocean.
Yes.
That was pretty good.
I also underlined that. That is, because we live in Oregon. We have the exploding whale story as proud state history. Exploding Whale Day was not that long ago, actually.
And this truly is a white whale.
It truly is a white whale, yes. A white whale. Yeah, so they get to the tower and they immediately say, well, we need to go down into the tower. We need to go the opposite direction from where Egwene is because we don't have good information. So we're going to be silly about it.
Right, their information's outdated because the last they heard, she was in the dungeon.
And they don't get all the way down to the dungeon before they learn otherwise, but that's where they start going.
And they notice that there's 2 points of battle. There's one, around the 22nd floor, which we know is Egwene. So they see her, right? They just don't know it's her. And then they see the other bit of resistance at the base.
The way they all underestimate her. See, if I was Gareth Bryn and I saw a woman at the top of the tower absolutely kicking ass and taking names, I would be like, well, that's Egwene. Obviously.
Right.
The Amerlin is clearly doing what the Amerlin does because the tower is under assault. Obviously. I don't know why everyone just is I don't know who there could be. Who the fuck else do you think it would be?
Because they underestimate her. Even her allies underestimate her.
Stop underestimating her. She's about to freaking die in 5 minutes. God. Don't underestimate her for the precious book and a half we get her left for.
And another POV switch. So this is the battle at the base of the tower, right? Because that's sort of the transition. As they notice the 2 battles, we've seen the one with Egwene, and now we're transitioning to the one at the base of the tower. We're kind of seeing how that's going and how it formed.
So explain to me why there's a battle happening at the base of the tower.
It's just where the resistance got together.
Okay, but why are soldiers attacking the base of the tower?
Because I assume that's where there's a bunch of doors.
Oh, okay. It's an air raid, so why are they attacking on the ground?
I assume that there was a certain amount of soldiers that were dropped off on the ground in the courtyard, right? Because it was an easy place for the Rockin' to drop them off. And so then they're trying to get in at the base of the tower. So there's a bunch of, basically they're trying to get in from the outside of the tower. They just bypass the rest of the city. Oh,
and also to distract the Aes Sedai from the air raid and help the Blood Knives infiltrate. Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of reasons to get your air raid troops on the ground.
You attack from the top and the bottom, right? And they blew a couple of holes in the side to try and get in that way. But you either have to make a hole or you go in through the existing holes, which are the doors at the base.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. And then, yeah, the forces are divided, trying to decide which side of the battle they're going to go deal with. So, yeah, we go to the bottom battle.
And it turns out Egwene's being so effective that she actually pulls most of the battle up there because they're like, God damn, we got to stop this one person who's just massacring us.
Yeah. If everyone else is less of a pain in the ass than this one woman. Yeah. And we are with Suian now. She is the one organizing on the ground floor.
And she's a brown who's somehow taken charge because she's a sitter. So she's just happens to be the highest ranking / most powerful person there.
Yeah, she's one of the more present and aggressive browns. She's also the one who took over the hunt for the Black Aja.
Right.
She's really, really okay with taking power in a way that is uncharacteristic of a brown.
And there aren't really any greens.
Yeah, and the greens are not showing up.
Because they were with the leader, the head of the Aja. What's her title again? Adalorna.
The battle leader.
They were with Adalorna, and they all got captured, right? She was the only one who made it out. So like all of the greens were like together as a force and just got their ass kicked.
Right, or they're scattered. Yeah, like it's bad.
So there's one green here, Moradani, who again single serving Aes Sedai.
Yeah, and she has only just arrived, and she's very eager to get back out into the fight again. But Suian holds her long enough to get some information on the map because, she is a brown, and she knows that, like, the first rule of war is to get information about things, right? Information is so critical to any sort of battle situation. So she's like, put information on the map. Show me where the other Aes Sedai are so that I can start to make a plan. And
so... At the most, I think we've estimated there's like 250 Aes Sedai in the tower at this point.
Something like that, yeah. Yeah, because it was 300 at the beginning, right? And now we've lost so many people, so...
Right. She sent some way to attack the Black Tower. She sent some away to be with Rand. Some have died, Somewhere around 250, I think, is how many sisters we have left in the tower. So this ground floor has around 47. So it's like a fifth of the sisters. So you've got probably a small, and you don't really have that many sisters up with Egwene either. So we have to assume the vast majority are just scattered.
Yeah. Yeah, hiding, fighting in little pockets here and there. Yeah, there's not organized centers of them because they've been fractured into itty bitty tiny pieces by their leaders. Captain Chubane shows up being like, "'Tis but a scratch," with his injuries that she insists he gets healed. And then he's like, but seriously, like, under all the bravado, the Tower Guard are freaking useless. Like, we need something more effective than us to fix this.
And she's like, try bow and arrow.
Yeah, she's like, maybe don't hit the magic women with swords. Maybe use ranged weapons. Duh.
Right. If they're going to tear you apart at a distance, hit them from a distance before they can tear you apart. Seems pretty obvious, but, that's just... It's obvious they really haven't thought it out. Right?
Yeah, everyone's running around with their heads cut off because, again, this is not a thing anyone had expected. This is supposed to be the central safe place. This is the last place that would be attacked, right? No one was prepared to defend here.
And meanwhile, in the back of her head in the back of everyone's head, they're thinking, man, Egwene basically said this was going to happen. We all heard the rumors that she, because it was a rumor, right? It was one of those things that people were like, oh my God, Egwene has this feeling. She's ridiculous. She just wants attention.
But like, she was warning about this. There's also this whole paragraph she thinks, what she didn't mention was how embarrassed she was. The Aes Sedai had spent centuries guiding kings and influencing wars, but now, with their sanctuary assaulted, they had proven woefully inadequate in defending it. Egwene was right, she thought, not just in predicting this attack, but in berating us for being divided. Suian didn't need reports from Moradri or the scouts to know that the Ajas were each fighting this battle independently. Like, it's just, yeah, this was eminently predictable, even without Egwene's dreams. A lot of this was predictable.
Right, which explains like most of the Aes Sedai are in their Aja fighting in probably little Aja pockets. The greens fighting with the greens, the yellows with the yellows, the reds with the reds, right? There's not a lot of crossover. And because, again, 250, divide that by 7 Ajas, right? I mean, you're very quickly getting to the point where you've got less than 20 Aes Sedai per Aja.
Yeah, and then you've got individual personality clashes. Like, yeah, it's absolutely terrible. And even in this time of strife, she's sending runners to Aja to the different Aja groups being like, we're going to send some browns and yellows. Like, we're going to talk to the browns and yellows. We're going to send the browns and yellows to you. Like, she still has to operate with the Aja loyalties in mind, even in this moment of extreme crisis.
Well, I think it's also important to have, like, the skills, right? You need a yellow to go to each group so they can heal, because the yellows are the ones who are good at healing.
And then some reds walk in being just caricaturishly bad at helping make the situation better.
Well, being led by a black, don't forget.
Yes, it is very obvious. They walk in, they're like, we must scour them from the tower. And Saren's like, we can barely keep them from killing us. Can we be realistic in our goals right now? And yeah, Katarine is absolutely pushing the hardest to be the worst. Which, like, yeah, that makes sense. There she goes, being a black red.
So, yeah, I mean, Katarine tries to pull rank, but Saren says, nope, I'm a sitter in the hall. Mistress of the Novices doesn't get to tell me what to do. I'm the leader here. Shut up.
Yeah, and she even points out the battle has stretched long for a raid, perhaps because we've done such a poor job of resisting. Like, yeah, they thought they were going to get in and get out, and it turns out that you are just sitting ducks, fish in a barrel, except for on the 22nd floor.
And during this time, the booms start coming not shaking, right? We get the first booms that don't shake the tower. All the ones before have.
Yeah, and that makes them go, wait a second. How it sounds like the tower is fighting back. That doesn't make sense. We're all here fighting and squabbling and being ridiculous. None of us are being effective.
Yeah, we're not effective. How is this happening? Question. They said the battle is stretched long for a raid. Why? And they're giving, like, maybe because we're doing such a poor job. Like, what do you think is going on there?
I think she's completely right. I think that they went in planning for a hard battle, and the battle is proving much easier than they thought. And so they're just like, I guess we keep going. Either that or the Shan were willing to waste way more lives on getting the number of people they were getting. And it was going to be a long raid because it did take them so long to get there. But I just have always figured Samhain was right because they are embarrassing. It's embarrassing they're showing. Like, yeah, I think the Shan are just shocked at how bad you are at defending yourselves. Like, yeah, like Light-Blinded Fool said, Shan, divide and conquer. Oh, step one's already accomplished. We just have to conquer
themselves. Yeah,
Handy.
no, and divided house falls, right? That's kind of what's been predicted.
It's almost like you need teamwork to make the dream work. Insert well-known idiom here.
So then we get the report that the Shan are basically heading up to the 22nd tower to attack them and aren't really bothering with the ground floor anymore. And she's like, what? How's the novices' quarters?
And then, no.
And then she's like, oh, Egwene.
It's not the novices' quarters. That used to be Egwene. Saren respects Egwene. As soon as she is told that the 22nd floor, the upper tower, is where the fight is, she immediately leaps to Egwene. Saren respects Egwene.
100%. And there is a group of Aes Sedai who respect her, and a lot of them are eating crow right now and going, oh man, yeah, I really should have listened to Egwene, which I think really contributes to the vote later of making her Amyrlin, because it's like, oh yeah, I should have been listening to her, so maybe I should listen to her more, that she's Amyrlin, and just vote her in as Amyrlin.
It's really hard for the women who were starting to respect her to look at that void of power and look at her defense and not just fall in line in perfect lockstep. Like, how do you not say she is the Amyrlin? She defended us. She believed in us and defended us, obviously.
And could have left at any time, and yeah, all those sorts of things.
Yeah. So much crow is being eaten. So much. So POV switch back to Egwene in her just most glorious battle sequence. Just absolutely raging.
And I love the lead-in for it. It's like, who could possibly be doing this? Egwene! Flash to Egwene, right? Like, I think that's a good transition right there. I thought that was really well done. And then, yeah, it's just each faceless Shan that Egwene struck down seemed to be Rena in her mind's eye. And she's just one after the other, just slinging death with the power of this incredible sangreal and the backing of all the novices and their untrained power. It's a really cool moment. And using them their own weaves against them, right? Like, why is she so good at fighting? Not because of her training in the tower, not because of her training with the wise ones, but because of her training with the Shan. They specifically taught her how to turn weaves deadly.
Yeah. I just want to read the Fount of Power paragraph because it's so good. But she was a fount of power, drawn from deep within the fluted rod in her hands, channeled through a group of novices and accepted, hiding in the room behind, bound to her in a circle. Egwene was part of the fires that burned in the tower, bloodying the sky with their flames, painting the air with their smoke. She almost seemed not a being of flesh, but one of pure power, sending judgment to those who dared bring war to the tower itself. Blasts of lightning stormed from the sky, the clouds churning above. Fire sprouted from her hands. She's so glorious. She is so glorious.
Truly seeing someone use an sangreal is cool, right? That's also a moment of power. Like someone besides Rand using a sangreal and really showing off the power that they can gain from it.
Yeah, and Rand is usually like half mad or, cleansing the source. Like this is a more normal use of incredible martial power to just be a one-woman army fighting off hundreds of people. She fells 30 of the Rockin'. Like that's so many. She kills so many people with this.
Yeah. Her murder score goes up for sure.
Like she just like if you think about the number of people she kills, her kill count like quintuples at least in this one night.
And then she makes it pretty big again when she turns into that crystal.
Well, yeah, then there's that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, a bunch of high school students fighting dragons. Light-blighted fool. Does kind of feel like that.
Yeah.
There is that, that sort of young adultness of it, of like,
oh, yeah.
Me at my school will gather all my classmates, and I've learned so much more than them, so they respect me, and they'll give all their power to me, and I'll use the combined power of the entire school against the bad guys. Like, there's a little bit of that, like, young adult wish fulfillment to this.
I mean, this is that era of books. Like, young adult wish fulfillment is kind of like what we were reading more than just this book that was giving us a teenager who could kill dragons because she was righteously pissed,
Right. Totally.
Or ride dragons or become a dragon or whatever the given dragon franchise was. Yeah. And she's going to make the Seanchan withdraw. And she thinks about how with this much power, she could not be stopped save by a full circle. And the Seanchan didn't use circles. The Adon prevented it. It's just that, you literally can't fight me because you take away people's free will. It doesn't work.
And she realizes that some have escaped, right? She can't stop them all, so she just has to make them pay, right? Anything that's left, just make it a really painful, lose more damane than they gain, essentially, is her goal.
Yeah, she had to make certain they never attacked the tower again. The raid had to cost them. And that's bitter if you are a spoilers person, because we know that the Seanchan consider this a success. Despite as much damage as she does, despite how well she rallies, despite everything, they do the numbers and they're like, yeah, that was worth it. We should do that again sometime.
Because they don't value the lives of the people that were lost.
And they got a lot of Marath damane in exchange for soldiers that they were willing to sacrifice. They got nukes in exchange for foot soldiers. That's how the Imperium does its calculus. It's just I love Egwene. She does such a great job. And the Seanchan are like, yeah, that worked out well for us. No. All right, POV switch. Back to Bryn.
In the courtyard with just all the mangled bodies that have fallen from above.
Right? The hazard of falling bodies is a very real part of this battlefield.
It's like, shit, because there's basically flaming rockin'. Kind of like flaming planes come crashing down on a battlefield, right? I can just see the World War film where it's the
little fighter jets crashing down. Yeah.
Where Indiana Jones is jumping out of the way of the plane. And
very much so. Very much so. Yeah, Egwene is not only threatening the captives and the enemy, she's also threatening her allies when she fells them too close to the grounds.
So this little POV kind of tells the story of Gareth Bryn's sword, right? Like, I kind of followed his sword throughout the whole activity. Because it starts with him, like, dropping it as he rolls to avoid an attack.
Which, like, no swordsman should do that. I feel like that's emphasized repeatedly, that that's not a thing swordsmen do. You always hold on to the sword. But whatever, who am I?
And then Gawyn gets it and hands it back to him. It's this whole, like, it's his internal thoughts while he gets his sword back from Gawyn.
Right. He also admires how badass Gawyn is with a sword. It's very much like Aram. It's just that, like, you can't go into that situation. You'll die. Oh, you just killed them with aplomb. Okay, then.
Mm-hmm.
Gawyn and Aram should have gotten together.
Yeah, no, please. I mean, maybe then one would have killed the other and we could have, like, spared ourselves the stupidity of both of them.
Light-blinded fool. Gareth sleeps with that sword every night. He's smitten.
Yeah.
So Bryn looks up there, sees a woman in white kicking ass, doesn't immediately assume it's Egwene, like an asshole. He also notices that there's activity on the flat circular roof, which we know is more or less, this is the moment when Elida is being taken, give or take.
One would assume, yeah.
Yeah, he's seeing the process that Elida is part of. I choose to believe that he looks up right around when she's literally getting picked up and taken off.
I feel like there's a bunch of parallel stuff going on at the same time, right? I feel like this isn't necessarily sequential, right? They're jumping between different places where at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why, when we join Elida later, it's after this moment. So I assume that at this moment, he's witnessing the bag that is her getting taken off.
Yep.
But that's entirely my headcanon because I like that sort of plot. But yeah, it's very much like playing like Dungeons and Dragons combat. Like, yes, it's a 6-second round, but it's going to take us an hour to cover everything that is happening in said 6-second round.
So the fight's between 30 Shan soldiers who are coming out and Gareth Bryn's 100 men. And also some Rockin are like interfering, right? They're dropping boulders, doing stuff like that. So it's kind of not great.
It's a mess.
Yeah.
They're not quite Aiel levels of deadly, but they are very effective soldiers. So Bryn's soldiers, he loses a few and some are going to get left behind. Some of them are going to die. Like, they do take some casualties, but they win the fight easily because, it's over 2-to-1 odds. Like, it's just, you don't win. And then in the meantime, Swan slips off and goes to get a novice who clues them into the fact that searching the dungeons will not work.
In complete violation of Min's prophecy, right? Just totally abandoning Gareth Bryn in the middle of a battle, despite the prophecy saying if they separate, they'll both die. I guess she makes it back in time. It's such, I don't know, it's such a weird prophecy.
Yeah, I feel like Sanderson did not quite understand what Jordan was going for with that. And I suspect Jordan didn't quite know what he was going for with that because he clearly didn't leave good notes on it. And none of us have figured out a satisfying explanation. It's just prophecies be like that sometimes.
And it's just like, though, if you ever separate at any point in your future, you could die. It's such a weird, like, not the way the prophecy was worded at all. And not the way I thought of it. And not the way Min made it seem, right? It was like, it made it seem like there'd be one point in your future where you will save each other. And then you're good. And that's what we kind of all assumed. And I feel like Sanderson pulled a gotcha. No, that's not what it meant. And it was like, oh, that's dumb.
I always thought that, like, she said something like, you have to be there for him twice.
Oh.
Or something.
No, I don't think so.
No, I'm thinking of her. I don't know what the fuck I'm thinking of. Initially, it was a great inciting incident for a Taming of the Shrew style romance to say you have to stay with him because otherwise you'll both die. Like, it was a great reason to force them to be together.
Kind of like Codswain's, she'll teach you something, so you have to, right?
But as with all things woo, you shouldn't live your life too precisely by the prediction. You should just live your life with the general knowledge that that's true. You shouldn't be making minute-to-minute decisions based on that information.
And so that's why I hate that Min is like, oh my God, he's abandoned you, and then they die. And I'm like, it was just they separated for a few minutes, like they do a million other times. Just because Min was there and happened to see it, that's when they die, right? Like, I don't know. I didn't like it. I don't like their deaths. I don't like the way that that's handled in the last book. It feels...
I mean, there's something to be said for, like, you can misread when a prophecy is fulfilled. There's something to be said for that as an example. But having Swan die the way she does. It's very upsetting and frustrating and unnecessary and bad. There were better ways to prove the issues with taking prophecies too literally and believing that they'd been fulfilled when they weren't. Like, there were other ways to do that.
How did she die again? I forget exactly what the circumstances were.
She gets bombed in the tent at some point. It's the really weirdly off screen. I guess technically on screen, but it feels like just a by the by. And for someone as important as Swan, it feels downright insulting. It's not the Sharon attack, but I think it's still in the camp or something after the Sharon attack. I forget exactly, but it's really dumb and bad and not what she deserved.
Yeah, she like dies in a random explosion while trying to save Matt.
Yeah, it's dumb and bad and unnecessary and unsatisfying, and I will be very angry about it every time it gets brought up, especially when we get there.
Demandred bombs Matt's command post. That's right. Okay. So, yeah. She gets taken out kind of in the same way that Grendal's two friends do.
Halima and Agonar? And Arengar?
Arengar and...
and Delana.
Delana. Yep. Those two get taken out kind of just... Oh, yeah, they were trying to bomb somebody else, and they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, which Swan didn't deserve that. He deserved better for her. Swan deserved to fucking live and marry Moraine and live in a fucking hut on the side of the river for the rest of their lives.
Both in the show and in the books.
Yeah, like, that's how it's supposed to go. Like, the part where, and then they each get a man is, no.
So right now I think I've got her coming back with information that Egwene is back in the Novice Tower and has been dosed with a bunch of fork root. Right,
she's not in the dungeon, but she is upstairs and definitely drugged and not the woman who is kicking ass and taking names and all out of bubblegum and all that jazz.
No way it could be her. So they're trying to, they're like, oh my God, what are we going to do with this novice? She's going to betray us. And she's like, oh no, I support the Amerlin, like all the novices do.
Mm-hmm.
Egwene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which, makes that a simple choice for them, which is good.
We get the death count. 12 men died in the battle, 15 are wounded. And then it was 15 are wounded but can walk, and then another 6 are wounded too badly to walk. I think it's 3 of those 6 are dying, is what my assumption was.
Yeah, exactly. That's my assumption as well. 3 of them are going to make it, 3 of them aren't going to make it. And Swan says, that doesn't make me happy on your behalf, so I'm going to go heal 3 men real quick. And I find it a little unbelievable that Swan in her reduced power is able to heal 3 men in rapid succession to the point that they won't die. That feels a little out of scale, but for plot reasons, it's fine.
Yeah, I don't really know what kind of healing she can or can't do.
I guess maybe just sealing someone up so that they're not literally dying is easier than fixing them so that they can walk or function at all. And as she goes to heal them, Bryn's thinking, we're running out of time if the Seanchan are retreating. Like, the window to rescue Egwene before the tower reasserts its own control of itself is running out. Yes, I'm going to say, I feel like Swan's healing talent was expressed as being mediocre because she's a blue, and blues are mediocre at healing, I think.
She does know how to use the healing weaves to kill directly. She knows how to use Sidar to stop the heart. She does seem to have a small healing talent.
Swan does? When the hell did Swan talk about being able to stop hearts?
Memory of Light, chapter 37.
Oh, well, that explains why I forget, because it's in the last 3 books, and I don't know anything that happened to the last 3 books.
Let me see if I can get there in a way that's... Sorry, I'm doing a lot of reading, so I'm trying to get there quickly. I'm like, I wonder which chapter that is. That's the last battle.
Awkward.
So I'm like, I wonder if I can search through that chapter really quick.
Real quick, just search through a book, a chapter the length of a book.
Here we go. She's too on to abandon her costume for trousers and shirt and run to Matt. Min steps through the hole and runs around the building and encounter a male Ayad who catches a knife she throws at him before being killed by Suan, stopping his heart. She tells Suan that Suan was supposed to stay near Gareth. So this is right before she dies and is separated from Gareth. So like in that moment, she stops an Ayad's heart with the 1 power.
And then she stops Bryn's heart with her stupid, senseless death.
So she, in that moment, is able to stop somebody's tart, so she apparently knows how to do that and healing well enough. So,
Okay, all right. All that to say, she should be semi-competent at healing.
yeah, but that's all Sanderson stuff. There's no evidence of it beforehand. And also with a reduced power, she should be really bad at it. So,
But also, like, you know, if these guys are, like, rapidly bleeding out from their arteries, she should be able to, like, stop the lifeblood from pumping out in the next 3 minutes, right?
Right. You heal up a couple arteries, and that's basically it.
It's only a couple of artery walls should be within range for her and, like, make the difference on helping those soldiers not die.
Within the next hour.
Right, exactly. Because the idea is that they're leaving their wounded in enemy hands, trusting to the rules of war to have them be, you know, taken care of and imprisoned, like, with humane care.
Yeah, and healing is tend to be more like a talent based on, like, your change in power level doesn't affect your ability to heal as much.
But she's still so much weaker. I don't know. I just wanted to nitpick because this recording isn't long enough yet.
We're not that far over 2 hours.
All right, so Bryn's looking at the tower being like, wow, we're never going to forget this, you know? This is a profound impact on the tower to have all of these holes and fires ripped into it. And, you know, this is this moment of, like, pride and grief and all this stuff. And then a blood knife comes leaping out. And Bryn gets to experience how cool it is to be a warder with a level up and be able to, you know, protect his Aes Sedai in this wonderful moment. And then the blood knife is very blood knifey and almost manages to poison him with, like, his last little, puts a pin in his wrist that, like, is gonna poison him. I admire the blood knives for being like, oh, I died so much faster than I thought I would, but I'm still taking someone out with me, even as they're stabbed by a man they didn't see. You know, like, the quick thinking there is impressive.
And I have to wonder if maybe the reason we don't see the blood knives tear through the Aes Sedai right away is because the first one who tried to do anything got killed immediately. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, oh man, we lost one of our number right away. And this guy, like, this warder did it. And so maybe we need to be way more careful about who we attack. So we're only going to attack isolated Aes Sedai. And that explains the weird pattern that we are seeing in the blood knives attacks later on with Egwene, and why we're like, why aren't they killing a bunch more? It feels like if they have a limited amount of time, they'd just be, like, murdering anyone they could get their hands on. And maybe this, like, one guy who tries to attack, I mean, the other ones are probably around there somewhere witnessing this, right? They're probably not that far away, and this dude just executed the guy. So maybe they're like, oh fuck, maybe we need to, you know, be much more careful.
You know, that's a really interesting point, that if the other blood knives were like, this is going to be easy peasy lemon squat, one of us is dead. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Threat recalibration engaged.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this is the moment where, so the assassin reaches out and has, like, a little poison dart that he presses into Gareth Bryn's arm. Gareth Bryn doesn't notice. Suan is like, thank you for saving my life, but wait a minute. The prophecy wasn't that you just saved my life, it's that we save each other. And she realizes, oh, something's wrong with you, delves him, realizes he's poisoned, and heals him.
And it's a super fast acting poison. Like, this is poison that was going to drop him in, like, 90 seconds. Like, she had no time to make that leap, and she did it. So to her credit, she is very, very smart.
So that's one of those weird conditional min prophecies that, like, if she hadn't heard the prophecy, she wouldn't have thought to save Gareth Bryn's life. And so the prophecy saved his life in that moment.
Except this wasn't the moment, because Min says later, I still see the prophecy around you. It hasn't been fulfilled. This was a trick of your... This is a placebo prophecy is what this was. This is a placebo moment where they're saving each other because they believe in a prophecy, not because it's necessary.
See, I had a different interpretation. My interpretation is that it's not just one moment. There are multiple moments where they have to be near each other or else they will die. And, like, this is one of them.
Sure.
And then they think, and then there's, like, a more coming, right? And they're like, okay, we're good. And it's like, no, there's a bunch more coming. What are you doing?
Yeah. But I think it's because Swan's a really powerful person and the pattern was going to take her out. So, you know, like, you're going to have a lot of people working to keep you alive otherwise.
And then we're back to Egwene's POV as she lies exhausted on the floor, basically too exhausted to move or speak or she's hanging on to consciousness, barely aware of what's going on around her because of the channeling.
I mean, she's lucky she didn't burn herself out with how overextended she is.
It kind of reminds me of the way that Rand and Nynaeve were after the cleansing, right? It's not so much that they couldn't handle the amount of power, but channeling that much power takes physical effort. And she spent hours standing up there channeling battle power. And now she's just physically exhausted, like running a marathon.
Exactly. The sheer physical strain of doing that is its own burden. And she told all of the women that she was channeling through, or channeling from, all the women she was linked with, she's like, you all go straight to bed. Everyone who was in circles doing the battle, you need to stay up and help with battle mop up and dealing with the wounded and all that. But the people who were just battery conduits, you all need to go straight to bed.
But she stays there because she wants to help, care for the wounded or work on the fires. She's like, I can still help. And it's like, no, you can't. Passes out.
I think she's out there because she literally ran out of juice in the middle of the hallway, nowhere near a bed. I think that's what that is. She's like, I'm just gonna go until I literally stop, and she just stopped in the middle of a hallway, just like she wound down. Her batteries are completely discharged. The spring has completely relaxed. Like she's done. She has no capacity to think about going to bed. She's used the energy she would have used to go to bed to continue on thinking she's got the energy to do stuff.
Right. And she's protected pretty much everybody who was with her, but still kind of failed the tower, right? Is her thoughts. Like enough of them got away. There was enough of a raid. Like the raid was successful. She made them pay for it, but not as much as she wanted to. And she only was able to really protect the people around her.
Yeah, I mean, she has the correct read here that the White Tower did not come out ahead in the battle in terms of the numbers of people they lost versus the number of casualties they inflicted. Yeah, she did not exact the cost she wanted to exact. But, I mean, they did win with the whole losing of Elida thing. I mean, that does put the tower ahead.
And because she brings in this massive influx of novices, and let's be realistic, a huge number of Aes Sedai who are outside of the tower, yes, it's a huge loss for the Aes Sedai who are in the tower, but overall, it's not that big of a loss of numbers. 40 or 50 Aes Sedai, I mean, they lost more to the Black Tower when Elida sent them off for the raid.
Right. I mean, she lost a lot of novices and accepted, though, right? She didn't just lose Aes Sedai in this raid, like to the Shan-Chan. The Shan-Chan got a lot of channelers who were not Aes Sedai.
I thought she was able to keep most of the novices safe.
I mean,
only 3 novices and 1 Aes Sedai dead.
From her group, but she didn't get to everyone in the tower.
I thought that, like, all...
Yeah,
I thought she had all of the novices together. Because she went to the novice quarters. They were all in the novice quarters. They formed all the various 5 different circles.
Is that all of them?
I think so.
Oh.
There aren't that many. Remember, there's not that many novices in the tower. They're not accepting all the new novices and everything.
So you're saying that 40 or 50 Aes Sedai is all the channelers that the Shan-Chan got, and they're patting themselves on the back about it?
I think they got some they got some accepted. Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, that's always the thing, is it's like Egwene isn't accepted, but why is she with the novices if she's an accepted?
No, Elida made her a novice again.
I thought she got elevated back to being an accepted again.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I thought that they were allowed to put her back into accepted, I thought, so that she could have... I don't know. I'm confused. But the Shan-Chan got more than 40 fresh channelers to pat themselves on the back about, right?
Let me see if I can find...
No, Light Blinded Fool is saying she was never an accepted again. Maybe that was just teased. But yeah, clearly she's in the novices' quarters. Oh yeah, no, I mean, I see a line saying novice. So okay, I was wrong about the whole accepted thing. But like, I don't know.
I don't know if... I'm trying to read the chapter with Fortuna to find out if we know how many they got. Towers of Midnight, chapter 47. Let me pull that up really quick. Or whatever. I don't know if we ever get the numbers of how many Marath Damani they captured, right? If she ever says exactly how many.
I hope she does, because that would be I'm curious what they consider to be worth it, given how heavy of losses they suffered. Like, they lose Damani to the tower. They lose Suldam to death. Like, they lose a lot of channelers.
But I don't think they got that many. I think they got a number,
but they consider it a success. Like, if they consider the raid a success, then
Sorry, this is a long silence, lots of research.
Vuji's suggesting it's just a Pyrrhic win. They're saying it's success. Saying it's a success to avoid making an apology. Maybe. I mean, yeah, I guess they could say we were, a dozen channelers ahead, so it counts. I don't know. I'm always surprised at how small of numbers we're talking when it comes to Aes Sedai stuff.
So kind of why I reiterate it, because I know it's it's not intuitive. You're like, what? These are just not that many people. Like, they think they're the shit, but they're just tiny. Yeah, I mean, she sort of talks about how, like, now that they have gateways, what they did before was a pinprick. Now they're really going to attack. But I don't see her talking about how many they captured, because we see her with, Elida, and Elida's trying to bargain. They demonstrate gateways. I mean, if nothing else, that makes the raid a success, right? Is the fact that they got gateways from the raid, right? It doesn't really matter how many they lost or how many they gained. That alone is a strategic advantage.
That is huge. Yeah, so, and then Saren thinks later in this chapter that Egwene had a group of over 60 novices, and that does sound like about all the novices that the tower has.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be the entire population of novices that she protected. So, the inciting incident of this long tangent is that I'm wrong again.
Hey, we're in that part. We're in those books where the Radiopedia is not up to date. It definitely.
I'm not pediaing.
No, you're not pediating at all. Well, and what's so funny is Encyclopedia Watt also doesn't have Memory of Light in it. So in a lot of ways, my reference also.
Kinship. Encyclopedia and a Radiopedia.
Yeah, it's like how does a Radiopedia and an Encyclopedia Watt all of my encyclopedias just don't include the last couple of books that well.
That's funny.
It's the Sanderson of it though. Like, it's not as complicated to write and talk about.
Yeah, except when it gets into the hard numbers of how many Aes Sedai are involved in a given thing.
Right. Where were we? Oh, right. I closed my book. That's why I was looking at other books.
So we're at Egwene thinking about how she fought and how she was glorious and how the tower is going to need a strong leader in order to rebuild. And the next few days are going to be really important. And this, going to focus on the future, but just going to take a few moments to rest. And then she gets picked up and she's like, oh, it's such a nice dream that I think that Gawyn's holding me. What a lovely way to get a few moments of rest. And turns out it's real Gawyn. Living nightmare. And Swan and Bryn are there. And she's like, no, don't take me. I'm winning. But she's too tired to make her mouth make the words. She's just thinking it really hard, which is insufficient to convince them to let her stay there.
Mm-hmm. I love her. I destroyed them. I was a burning warrior, a hero called by the horn.
Yes, girl. Yes, you are a hero from the horn. Fucking yes.
Don't dare face me again. Like, that puts herself on that level of accomplishment to be like, I was just this burning force in the wall that held back a tide of Seanchan by myself.
Yeah, she is a hero too. That's why she gets to deliver that line to Rand. She's a literal capital H hero.
And this impresses everybody, right? Everyone saw her, realized who it was. Well, except the people pulling her out of the freaking tower.
Literally her closest friends don't get it, but everyone else does.
I feel like that's a fantasy trope where it's everyone, the hero does something amazing, or his closest allies think he's betrayed them, but the enemies know it wasn't real, so they're like, right, your friends think you're a traitor, but I know you're not, so I'm gonna kill you anyway.
Right, or even just the classic thing of in your hometown, you're never as cool as you are out in the world where you made your mark. Your hometown people are always going to be like, yeah, whatever.
Exactly.
You're just a dumb little kid. It doesn't matter.
So Suan finds Vorasangreal and goes, ooh, I can make a gateway with this. Let's get the fuck out of here. They head out of the White Tower. Which also, it's like Egwene leaving. I know it's really frustrating. She could just make another gateway and walk right back in.
Well, she thinks about it later and is like, no, the panache is wrong.
Because now it's like, oh, well, you can come and go as you please. You're not under any authority.
Yeah. And POV switch back to Suian. Suian is in the hospital/command center, still in charge, because that's how badly decapitated the tower's leadership is, that Suian is still the highest ranked Aes Sedai. And there's over 20 Aes Sedai dead known about so far. That's, a hint of the casualties to come. Suian's wondering where Elaida is while she continues to get more and more reports of the dead and injured. No one knows where Elaida is. Hopefully the armor in the hall could be gathered soon to present strong leadership.
This is where we get the information about Egwene. Only 3 of 60 novices and 1 of 40 Aes Sedai. So yeah, that is, you're right. That's the...
And 10 Shan-Chan channelers captured. Like, that's 10 taken from Shan-Chan and potentially delivered to the Aes Sedai to replace the numbers that they lost.
Not to mention how many did she blow out of the sky that were on Rockin', right? Like, so yeah.
Yeah. Over 30 Rockin' blown from the air. Again, Egwene's kill count is easily in the triple digits, if not edging towards 4. And then in the middle of all that, Captain Chubane brings her an accepted who had the fortune/misfortune to be hit by rocks and a wall collapsing when Elaida's rooms were attacked by the Shan-Chan and got left for dead, and can come down with the news that Elaida is gone. Not dead, gone.
No, and that's the same thing that happened to Matt. He got left under a wall full of rubble by the Shan-Chan.
Yeah, this poor little accepted has something in common with Matt. Came out from under a wall.
This accepted has been mentioned before. She tried to bully Egwene when she first came on. She was the one who was like, and then Egwene was like,
oh yeah,
ignored it. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that mare.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then from that, Suian going, there's no way that she's implying what I think she's implying. And then we POV switch to Elaida, who is very much no longer in the tower.
Right. She does that thing where she's like, I don't want to wake up. It's cold out here. And it's like, you're not in your bed anymore, Elaida. Wakey, wakey. Things have gotten bad.
And somehow she hasn't really gained full consciousness until now. I'm not totally sure how you can have your wall blown in and get yoinked onto the roof and not wake up until after the flight has started.
I'm thinking maybe she got like hit in the head a little bit by one of the bricks that blew in. Like,
sure.
So there's a little concussion going on. Like that's.
Yeah, she was stunned for long enough that. Okay, yeah, sure, that's fine. I'll accept that.
I mean, we don't mention anything, but.
Yeah, and she, does the whole trying to channel, trying to struggle, and then gets introduced to her Sul Dom, and it's nasty. And I really just have the readout to accompany that horror.
Just that Sufa. We get to see Sufa later on with in front of Tuon making gateways.
Yep, unfortunately. All right, you ready for the readout on this long-ass episode?
Yep, go for it.
A voice whispered from the night, I shall forgive that little mistake. You have been Marath Damani for very long, and bad habits are to be expected. But you will not reach for the source again without permission. Do you understand? Release me, Elaida bellowed. The pain returned tenfold, and Elaida retched at the intensity of it. Her bile and siccup fell over the side of the beast and dropped far to the ground below. Now, the voice said, patient, like a woman speaking to a very young child. You must learn. Your name is Suffa, and Suffa will be a good Damani. Yes, she will. A very, very good Damani. Elaida screamed again, and this time she didn't stop when the pain came. She just kept screaming out into the uncaring night.
Pretty brutal there.
It's the moment when a villain goes from, yeah, anything to get you out of the plot to, oh no, not like that. Like, oh, I don't want to feel good about that. That doesn't make me feel okay at all.
Yeah, and one of the things, though, is like, it's something Egwene has gone through, and you're like, oh, Egwene went through it and came out the other side better. What's going to happen to Elaida? Not that. Like,
And better is
not that.
questionable, but yeah.
Well, yeah, sure. Yeah.
She came out stronger, but also more
Stronger.
brittle.
Sure.
But yeah, Elida will not maintain who she is the way that Egwene did. Elida will not be rescued. I mean, that's the thing too, is Egwene thinks in this section about how she could feel her will eroding, and she knew that at some point she wasn't going to be able to fight anymore. She gets rescued before that happens. Like, Elida, no one ever rescues her. No one's ever going to come for her. She has no hope of being rescued, and no one ever comes for her. So, like, yeah, it's rough to know that someone less likable and less strong than Egwene is going in. But nonetheless, someone that we've known for a long time in the books
Right.
is going into that with no hope of coming out.
I mean, someone who started off, like, we met her in the garden when Rand fell in a long time ago with that prophecy. Yeah, like,
She's been around longer than Varen, who just died, right? Like, she's been around, and you know what happens to people in that imprisonment. And we know as spoiler people, the Tower very happily chooses to not pursue rescuing her because she was so awful and it's such a difficult situation. But, like, if Egwene had been captured, I don't know that they would have given up so easily, you know?
Right. It is, I don't know, that is one of the most unrealistic things, but I guess in war. But usually there's prisoner exchanges in war, you know? But the Seanchan aren't interested in that. Not with the Marath Damani.
But I feel like an attempt would have been made with Egwene in a way that it never will be for Elida. Elida did not earn the loyalty of people asking for the impossible.
Well, good riddance.
I feel so bad saying good riddance, you know? It's like, not magic slavery. No, couldn't you just have killed her? Then I'd feel okay with it. But yeah, but then she tries to throw Other Eyes to Die under the bus. Like, you know, like, I'll trade you 20 for me. Like, it's, yeah, she sucks. And if anyone were to deserve this, it would be her. No one deserves this, but if anyone did, it would be her.
Mm-hmm. And I don't want to draw any parallels with our current president, but if anyone deserved it. Yeah, no, the parallels are there. But you could argue they're there this is just, you write history and it feels like writing prophecy, right?
No, we talked about it last time. It's a whole thing. I keep going on tangents and then being like, I'm going to edit that out. And then I get to it and I'm like, well, but when do I cut myself off? Because, like, this blend from talking about the books to talking about modern things is just so seamless. It's like, where do I cut myself off in a way that, like, it's a challenge. Editing's a challenge. Speaking of editing being a challenge, let's turn this episode off.
Well, you don't want to edit more minutes of drivel and bullshit?
We already have witty banter from the beginning for the end.
Thank God none of that was recorded.
Yeah, that... nope. Don't need to hear that.
A formal thank you to all our live listeners. Yeah.
This is just open therapy time. Not anymore, because now the mics are on.
Oh, come on. You don't want to hear about my trauma on live?
Hey, if you want to come share therapeutic, cathartic space with people that isn't, legally speaking, not therapy, you can come to my support group on Thursdays.
Legally speaking, not therapy.
It's very important that I emphasize that I am not doing therapy. It's, like, actually legally important.
Gosh, is there anything we just talked about or anything we should get on record for the lifestyle changes that are going on?
You were telling me that Harvey is very nearly a good boy.
Very nearly a good boy.
All the time. I mean, he's always a good boy fundamentally. But
right.
You were saying he's improving, continuing to improve.
He's continuing to improve, right? Pretty much he's calming down quicker with strangers, listening more. He's very snuggly most of the time. He's not barking at us. He's not biting at us. He's not nipping as much. You know, it's still the behaviors still all occur, but only in, like, very small bursts, only when he's very tired. Yeah, he's turning into a very good dog because he is highly motivated to listen to what we want. He very much, cares about what we want from him. He's a very smart dog. He's not super food motivated, especially when he's at the park. He's much more attention motivated. So, yeah, it's and he's about to turn a year. Probably by the time this recording comes out, he will have turned a year old. He'll turn a year on the 29th of this month.
Happy birthday to Harvey.
Happy birthday to Harvey.
Yeah, this actually will come out on his birthday because, we record 9 days before the episode's release. So, yeah. That's perfect.
That's perfect.
Everyone go wish Harvey a happy birthday.
So you're listening to this. He is a year old. And, we are learning to live with each other, although he will eat anything I leave out on the counter if I leave him alone for 3 seconds. He is tall enough to get up on there and just go to town.
Well, that's what leggy boys get to do.
Yeah, and it's like, okay.
Create challenges.
Yeah, remember,
for
put the
people
food
with
away. Put the food away. That's what I have to do. I can't leave the food out. Because Timber was never much for eating off the counters. He was always good about doing it. He wouldn't eat anything without permission. And he couldn't get up there anyway because he had bad hips. So there's a learning curve, certainly, with a new dog. Because he's an individual and yet still a dog. And still a pity, right? So he's got some of that same stubborn personality while at the same time being highly attentive, but sometimes choosing not to listen.
Intelligent,
yes.
Intelligent in a very specific doggy way.
And in a very Parent of the Two Rivers, stubborn asshole kind of way. Anyway.
Yeah. My life, I guess I can report that my strawberry rock decoys appear to be working.
Oh, nice.
I believe I talked about those on the podcast a bit. And so far I have had my first harvest of strawberries, just a few of them, and none of them had bird bites on them. So, and I've got a lot of ripening berries out there. Like I was watching this one ripening right next to a rock, and I was checking it every day, and I think it worked. I think the rocks worked. Like I'll continue to report throughout the strawberry harvesting season, but it seems at first glance that if you paint rocks red and lay them out in your strawberry plants before there's any fruit, like while the flowers are blooming, you got to put the rocks out before there's any hint of fruit. Apparently, then the birds don't want to eat them. So that's my update.
Oh, we found out a house on our street went up for sale, and the guy who lived there was apparently the crow whisperer of the street and fed and trained all the crows. And he's gone now, so Never is extremely excited to be taking over as the crow whisperer of the neighborhood. And so we're setting out.
Fun.
We've got peanuts because we got a balcony, and we're setting out peanuts for them to come to. And we bring unsalted peanuts on the dog walks to feed the birds. And so, yeah. I'm not sure it's a good thing because they dive bomb us for food. And I've been smacked in the back of the head multiple times by crows who are demanding treats. So I'm not entirely happy about that. Yeah.
You gotta start carrying like a tennis racket with you.
Well, because they recognize Harvey, right? And they know that like the person walking Harvey gives them treats. So
well, maybe you just have to learn to feed the crows.
I have been lately. So now they know me too because they're smart. Yeah, I'm developing my own raven's eyes is basically what I'm saying. It's pretty great.
This is good. This is good. The couple who have the murder of crows of the neighborhood on their side, like you don't want to fuck with them because they have the crows.
No, exactly. They will attack you if you bring shit down. Crows remember. They're smart.
They are so smart. Like comparable only to, ravens. Like, corvids in general are incredibly smart. And do not underestimate them. Even blue jays are very, very smart. Even though they are, rebelliously blue instead of black, they are still very, very smart.
Well, and I grew up with macaws in my house, right? So I am very familiar with how smart a bird can be, to the point where the bird would say my name when I walked into the room and would, call out for me. They could ask for things that they wanted, right? Because it's like giving the dog the buttons, right? Like they can say words that represent what they can be trained to say words to get what they want. And it's a very kind of creepy, especially because they can mimic sounds to a very high degree.
Bird mimicry sounds is woo.
The number of times I would think my mom was laughing in the other room when she wasn't home because the bird would mimic that sound exactly. Terrifying. Terrifying.
Yeah, birds are creepy and awesome. They're dinosaurs.
Mhm.
They're creepy.
They're creepy.
And awesome. Awesome and creepy.
The phone would ring. They'd say, hello, before you pick up the phone. I mean, yeah, there's all sorts of stuff like that. Examples are endless, and I'm sure people who've had birds know all about it. But like, yeah, you can't see the intelligence in birds and the intelligence in dogs and not realize that we just have a slightly different kind of intelligence. We're not really that special. We're just different.
Yeah. Any creature who does a certain level of like social interaction with its fellows has a kind of intelligence that is easily recognized across species. Like, no, they're smart. We just have different things that we need to do with our brains. That's it. That's all.
They understand that I want something. They understand that I want something. And that is a terrifying, like, you know, the fact that you can point and dogs follow where you point, right? They don't just look at your finger. They understand that you're pointing at something. Yeah.
Dogs, horses, birds, like, yeah. They can all, follow a couple of steps. I mean, freaking, I was just watching the True Facts. If anyone hasn't watched True Facts on YouTube, you are missing out. True Facts is so amazing. It's very, very silly, but also true. It's all science. And I was just rewatching the one about New Caledonian crows and all of their tool use. They're very, very tool usey crows. And yeah, so smart. So smart. They can do multi-step tool manufacturing, problem solving. It's very cool. I'll put a link in the show notes. It just, yeah.
Was that by Zay Frank?
Yeah.
Oh, Zay Frank. That is an internet classic. Oh, man. He has been around for a long time, and he's done some really great things on the internet. Are you familiar with his early work?
No. I know him as True Facts.
Okay. We shall have a discussion.
Okay, I guess I've been fucking up. All right.
He did. Oh gosh, I want to get this right, so I'm going to look up the details because I don't want to.
I did see him do an intro to a TED Talk, which was really surreal and weird and strange.
So he did something called The Show with Zay Frank in 2006.
Oh wow.
And this was, he would release a video every single day, 3 to 5 minutes of just absurd, surrealistic humor. And it was some of the OG internet stuff that is just so good. And I highly recommend it. And it was just, he ended it on a high note. He did it for a year and stopped it. And it was really sad. But then, you know, he went on to do a bunch of other stuff.
Okay. I always figured he had a prior body of work because True Facts feels like it's, you know, standing on its own, like, shoulders of giants kind of thing. But yeah, the channel, I had never seen anything but True Facts videos on it.
And honestly, the True Facts video is very much in the style of, like, it was like a one-off of one of his videos that he did in the show with that sort of mocking documentary style. But then he started doing actual documentaries, and that's how, like, I think, honestly, True Facts was a spinoff eventually of the show simply because the style is very similar. It's just back then he was doing comedy, and now he's doing much more science-based stuff, but in a funny way.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Like, he takes the most, like, niche freaking PhD theses and somehow makes, like, really silly comedy out of it. It's
Yes.
the most amazing thing.
Yeah.
If anyone out there listening, if you are not watching these videos, you are missing out. But no, that's interesting. I'm going to have to look up that original stuff because that feels like a rather glaring hole in my understanding of the lore of this character. Of this person. He's not a character, he's a real person.
Yep. Yeah. And it looks like it's all available, or at least most of it's available on YouTube. I will go ahead and throw a link there, at least for radio.
Clearly, I just don't care. I'm just a bad fan. I'm just a fake fan.
And there's 365-ish videos because he did it for 1 year. Well, I think he might have not done weekends. So 245 videos.
Yeah, every weekday. Wow. That's so early in internet history.
Oh, yeah. It is an establishing moment in, like, the absurdness of the internet and
I've
YouTube.
never heard of this.
He was absolutely,
Anywhere
like,
in the lore.
a founding member of why YouTube is the way it is.
I'm going to have to, like, submit this to Jamie Loftus for 16th Minute and be like, why are you not talking about Z Frank? I need you to do this. Wow. Amazing.
Kind of like the Green Brothers, right? Sort of someone who was like
Okay,
really
yeah,
at
who
the
I have completely heard of.
yeah, the early founding of
Follow
the
the show.
internet, and I feel like have guided it since then in certain ways, at least by being inspiration for a lot of other people.
So this guy is like the Sparks of the YouTube. You're not familiar with Sparks, the band, are you?
Mm-mm.
Sparks is the weird band that all your favorite bands are listening to.
Gotcha.
And have been since like the 80s. My dad is one of the most hardcore fanboys that band has. Like, you've never heard of them, but everyone that you like to listen to has heard of them. Is kind of who they are. So this sounds like kind of the same. No one's heard of him, but also everyone who makes the stuff you have heard of has heard of him.
I think so. Yeah, at least in my areas of the internet when I was growing up. And
fascinating.
there was a brief time after college where I had some connections to people who were building the internet, like, you know, friend of a friend type situation.
Right. Yeah.
So I did get some early invites to some of those, you know, all those social media apps, and I don't know. Anyway, let's move on from this.
Do you want to start preambling on what our double header is going to be today? Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Please rate and review us on your podcast app, and consider supporting us on Patreon for ad-free episodes. What Spoilers is a production of Fox and Raven Media. For more podcasts from Fox and Raven Media, visit our website at foxandravenmedia.com.